Welcome to HH28, where we unravel the secrets of self-discovery and matchmaking. We are Hugh and Heather,
two master holistic guides dedicated to helping you navigate the worlds of numerology, astrology, and personality in pursuit of meaningful connections.
Okay, so Chinese astrology, huh? Ever get that feeling like those ZODIAC placemats at restaurants?
Yeah.
You know, they kind of leave you with more questions than answers.
Oh, absolutely.
Like I get the whole, oh, you're the dragon, but what does it actually mean?
Yeah.
That's what we're diving deep into, right? Uncovering the intricate world beyond what's your sign.
Yeah, those placemats just scratch the surface.
Right.
Westerners, I think, they often just encounter these fun little snippets.
Yeah.
Without really grasping, like, the depth and the history and how interconnected this system is with, like, the universe.
Okay, so no more surface level stuff. Let's really get into it. Where do we even begin with a system this intricate, though?
Have you ever been, like, surrounded by people who are just, like, too clever for their own good?
Right.
Like, they're always, like, 3 steps ahead and, like, charming their way through every situation.
Right.
Well, today we're doing a deep dive into the Year of the Rat.
Oh, cool.
And you might just, like, recognize some folks in your life from these descriptions.
Interesting.
So the Year of the Rat, where do we even start with this one?
Well, it's interesting. The rat kicks off the entire Chinese zodiac cycle.
Oh, that's right. It's the first one. Hadn't thought about that in a while.
And the story of how it got that top spot is actually pretty revealing.
Okay, I'm always up for a good origin story. Hit me.
So legend has it, the Jade Emperor, he calls for a race to decide the zodiac order, right?
Makes sense. Gotta be fair.
Exactly. And the rat, well, small but mighty, right? Super clever. Hitches a ride on the ox's back.
Sneaky. I like it.
Right. But here's the real kicker. Right before the finish line, what does the rat do? Jumps off, zooms ahead, and snatches that first place victory.
No way. That is both strategic and kind of ruthless. Talk about resourceful.
And that cleverness is woven into the very fabric of the rat's personality.
Okay.
It's what makes them so adaptable, you know, quick-witted, resourceful. Think of them as like the ultimate improvisers, always finding a way to make things work in their favor.
Okay, so I'm already seeing how this lines up with some of the rat personalities in my life.
Yeah.
Always thinking on their feet, always 10 steps ahead.
Right.
But isn't that a little bit, well, manipulative?
It's a delicate balance.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
that same cleverness that can make them charming and resourceful can also, if unchecked, lead to some less admirable tendencies.
Right.
That's why understanding the rat's strengths and weaknesses is key.
Okay, so our Year of the Rat document lays out a whole smorgasbord of strengths.
Right.
Intelligent, resourceful, ambitious, charming. The list goes on.
Yeah.
But it's one thing to list these traits.
Right.
It's another to, like, see them in action.
Yeah.
So what are some real-world examples of how these strengths play out?
Think about like some of the most successful entrepreneurs and innovators throughout history.
Okay.
Like people like Walt Disney,
Oh, yeah.
a visionary who brought entire worlds to life.
Right.
Or George Lucas, who revolutionized filmmaking,
Wow.
both born in the Year of the Rat.
Oh, wow.
So that resourcefulness, combined with their ambition,
Yeah.
allows them to see possibilities where others see obstacles.
Oh, that's a good point.
They're the ultimate problem solvers, always finding a way to turn lemons into lemonade.
So it's not just about being clever. It's about using that cleverness to actually make things happen.
Exactly.
They're not just dreamers. Even the rat's biggest strengths can have a flip side.
Right. Every superhero has their kryptonite.
Exactly.
So what are we talking about here? What are some of the potential pitfalls for the rat?
Well, that sharp mind that makes them such brilliant strategists
Yeah.
can also become their own worst enemy.
Really?
They can get stuck overthinking, caught in a loop of analyzing every possibility until they're paralyzed by indecision.
So instead of making a move, they're stuck playing mental chess,
Exactly.
weighing every single outcome.
Yeah, and then there's the workaholic tendency.
Oh, right.
Rats are so driven, so focused on achieving their goals that they can easily burn themselves out. They have trouble setting boundaries, saying no, and prioritizing self-care.
Yeah.
Like they're always in overdrive,
Wow.
which can lead to stress exhaustion and even health problems down the line.
Our document also mentions impatience as a potential weakness.
Which seems a little counterintuitive, right?
It is.
I mean, they're such meticulous planners.
It's an interesting paradox.
Yeah.
They can plan meticulously for the long term, but when it comes to the day-to-day,
Yeah.
they can get frustrated by delays, or anything that disrupts their carefully crafted schedule.
It's like they're sprinting a marathon.
That's a perfect analogy.
All right.
And we can't forget the influence of the water rat.
Okay.
Those born in water rat years, like 1972 and 2020, might be especially sensitive and intuitive,
Okay.
but that also means they're more prone to feeling overwhelmed by strong emotions,
Oh.
whether their own or those around them.
It's like having a super sensitive antenna
Yeah.
that's picking up on all these emotional frequencies.
Right.
Which can be both a gift and a burden.
Exactly. It's a heightened awareness that requires careful management.
Yeah.
They need to learn how to shield themselves from negativity
Right.
and cultivate practices that promote emotional well-being.
So we've covered the strengths and the weaknesses.
But what about relationships?
Oh, yeah.
Our compatibility chart lays out some interesting pairings for the rats.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to hear your take on these cosmic connections.
Yeah, let's dive into those relationship dynamics.
Okay.
What's first on the list?
Well, according to this chart, one of the rat's most compatible matches is the ox.
Interesting.
Which at first glance seems a little odd, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the ox is all about stability and tradition, while the rat is quick, adaptable, maybe even a little bit chaotic.
It's precisely that contrast
Oh.
that makes them such a strong pairing.
Okay.
Think of it like this.
Yeah.
The ox provides the solid ground at the foundation,
Okay.
while the rat brings the spark, the ingenuity. The ox's grounded energy helps to temper the rat's restlessness, while the rat's quick thinking keeps things from getting too stagnant.
So it's like that saying opposites attract.
Yeah,
they balance each other out.
Right.
The ox admires the rat's cleverness and resourcefulness,
Right.
while the rat appreciates the ox's reliability and steadfastness.
Yeah.
Together, they create a dynamic that is both harmonious and productive.
Okay. I can see that. What about some of the other power couples on this list?
Well, the chart also highlights the dragon
Ooh.
as a highly compatible match for the rat.
Okay.
Talk about force to be reckoned with.
Right. It's giving power couple vibes for sure.
Yeah,
But wouldn't two strong personalities clash?
not necessarily.
Okay.
The key here is mutual respect and admiration.
Mm-hmm.
The dragon, with its natural charisma and leadership qualities,
Yeah.
can inspire the rat to reach new heights. And the rat, with its sharp mind and strategic thinking, can help the dragon turn their grand visions into reality.
So it's like they fuel each other's fire, pushing each other to be their best selves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a relationship that can be incredibly stimulating and fulfilling for both partners. But of course, it's important to remember that even the most compatible pairings require effort and communication.
Right. No relationship is perfect, no matter what the stars say.
Exactly. And speaking of less than perfect pairings, the chart also points out some potential challenges for the rat in love. For example, the horse, with its independent spirit and love of freedom,
Yeah.
can sometimes leave the rat feeling neglected and insecure.
Which makes sense, right? We talked about the rat's need for security earlier.
Precisely. And while the horse might not intentionally set out to hurt the rat, their differing needs for closeness and independence can create friction in the relationship.
So it's not necessarily a deal breaker, but it's definitely something to be aware of and navigate carefully.
Right.
What about the goat?
Yeah.
The chart mentions some potential bumps in the road there as well.
Yes. The goat's gentle and sensitive nature
Okay.
can sometimes clash with the rat's more assertive and direct communication style. The rat might inadvertently overwhelm the goat with their intensity, leading to misunderstandings and hurt feelings.
I can see how that could create tension.
Yeah.
It's like they're speaking different love languages.
Exactly. And finally, we have the rooster.
Okay.
The chart suggests that these two might butt heads due to their very different approaches to life. The rooster is detail-oriented, organized, and values structure. The rat, on the other hand, is more spontaneous, adaptable,
Yeah.
and comfortable with a little bit of chaos.
So imagine trying to plan a vacation together. Total disaster waiting to happen.
You nailed it. The rooster would have a meticulously planned itinerary, while the rat would be all about going with the flow and seeing where the adventure takes them.
But hey, maybe that clash of styles can create some sparks too, right? A little bit of opposites attract.
It's certainly possible. As with any pairing, it all comes down to communication compromise
Right.
and a willingness to appreciate each other's differences.
This whole compatibility deep dive has got me thinking.
Yeah.
Have you ever looked at your own relationships The lens of the Chinese Zodiac.
Oh, yeah.
It's like having this secret code, understanding why we click with some people and clash with others.
It's a fascinating way to gain insights into ourselves and the people we're drawn to.
I know.
And speaking of insights,
Yes.
we haven't even touched on one of the most fascinating aspects of the rat.
Ooh.
The element associated with this sign.
Right, the water element.
Yeah.
We've mentioned it in passing, but I'm curious to dive deeper into how this shapes the rat's personality.
Okay.
What does it mean to be a water rat?
Well, imagine a river flowing through a landscape.
Okay.
It's constantly adapting to its surroundings, finding its way around obstacles, carving new paths when necessary.
Right.
That's the essence of the water rat.
Okay.
They embody the qualities of fluidity, adaptability, and resilience.
So they're not just clever, they're adaptable too.
Right.
They can go with the flow change course when needed
Yeah.
and always come out on top. No wonder they're so successful.
Exactly. That adaptability combined with their sharp intellect makes them incredibly resourceful.
Oh.
They're the masters of improvisation, always finding a way to make things work in their favor.
But we talked about how that cleverness can sometimes tip over into manipulation, right?
Right.
Does the water element amplify that tendency?
Not necessarily. The water element adds another layer of complexity.
Okay.
Water rats are not only clever,
Yeah.
they're also deeply intuitive and sensitive.
Oh.
They have a strong emotional intelligence, which allows them to connect with others on a deeper level.
So they're not just reading the room, they're reading the emotions in the room. They're picking up on those subtle cues that others might miss.
Precisely. And that intuition can be a powerful tool,
Right.
not only in their personal relationships, but also in their professional lives.
Mm-hmm.
It allows them to understand people's motivations, predict their behavior,
Wow.
and navigate complex social situations with ease.
But there's a flip side to that sensitivity too, right?
Yeah.
We talked about how water rats can be more prone to stress and feeling overwhelmed. It's like they're absorbing all the emotional energy around them,
Yeah.
which can be exhausting.
You're absolutely right. It's a double-edged sword.
Okay.
That same sensitivity that makes them so compassionate and understanding can also make them vulnerable to negativity and emotional turmoil.
So it's all about finding that balance, right?
Yeah.
Learning to harness that intuition and empathy without letting it drain them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Water rats need to cultivate practices that help them stay grounded and protect their emotional well-being. Things like meditation, spending time in nature, and setting healthy boundaries are crucial for them to thrive.
It's like they need to learn how to swim in the emotional currents without getting swept away.
A perfect analogy. That brings us to another key aspect of the water rat, their creativity.
Oh.
Just as water takes on the shape of its container, water rats are incredibly adaptable and expressive.
So we're not just talking about artistic creativity here.
No, it's much broader than that.
Okay.
It's a creativity that manifests in all areas of their lives, from their problem-solving skills to their communication style, to their ability to connect with others.
It's like they're constantly flowing, generating new ideas.
Exactly.
Finding innovative solutions and expressing themselves in unique and compelling ways.
And that creativity combined with their adaptability and resilience makes them a force to be reckoned with.
Right.
They're the ones who can weather any storm, adapt to any situation,
Wow.
and emerge stronger on the other side.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah.
We've explored the rat's personality, their strengths and weaknesses, their compatibility with other signs, and the influence of the water element. But before we wrap things up, I'd love to leave our listeners with one final thought.
Okay.
Something to chew on as they ponder their own rat connections.
I'm intrigued. Well, what's this final thought you have in store?
Well, we've talked about how adaptable and resourceful rats can be, but what happens when those skills are used for, like, less than noble purposes?
Right.
What if that sharp intelligence turns into, like, manipulation or even deceit?
That's a really important question.
Yeah.
Because it gets at the heart of the rat's shadow side.
Okay.
Just like water can be a source of life and destruction, the rat's cleverness can be used to build up or tear down.
Exactly. It's like having a superpower.
Right.
You could use it to help people or to exploit them.
Yeah.
It all comes down to the choices they made.
Think about like notorious figures throughout history.
Okay.
who are known for their cunning and strategic brilliance.
Mm-hmm.
Some use their talents for good,
Right.
while others, well, let's just say their legacy is a bit more complicated.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that even the most positive traits can have a dark side.
So how can someone born in the year of the rat make sure they're using their gifts for good?
Self-awareness is key.
Okay.
Rats need to be mindful of their tendencies and make a conscious effort to act with integrity and compassion.
Right.
You know, they need to ask themselves, am I using my cleverness to genuinely help others, or am I just trying to get ahead, even if it means stepping on someone else?
It's like that classic Spider-Man line.
Yeah.
With great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah.
Rats have the potential to be incredibly influential, but they need to wield that influence wisely.
Right. And remember, Chinese astrology is meant to be a guide, not a rule book.
Okay.
It's about understanding yourself better, not boxing yourself in.
It's like having a map, not a GPS.
Right.
It shows you the terrain, the potential pitfalls, and the most scenic routes, but ultimately you choose which path to take.
Exactly. The beauty of the rat is its potential. By embracing their strengths and managing their weaknesses, those born under this sign can achieve truly incredible things.
Wow.
They could be innovators, leaders, and agents of positive change.
So it's all about self-awareness,
Yeah.
conscious choices, and using your gifts to make the world a better place. Right. If you're a rat, own that cleverness,
Yeah.
but always remember to wield it with a good heart.
Well said. And for those of you who know and love rats, keep in mind that they might need a gentle nudge now and then to stay on the path of integrity, but never underestimate their capacity for growth and positive transformation. Ready to dive into another corner of the zodiac?
Always excited to unpack these fascinating signs. Where are we headed today?
We're tackling the ox. Got our trusty sources right here, ready to spill the tea on this hard-working sign.
The ox, known for their strong shoulders, both literally and figuratively, right?
Absolutely. Hard-working, honest, down-to-earth. Those are the words that immediately come to mind. But I'm itching to get past those surface-level descriptions. What's a real-life example of that legendary ox work ethic?
Okay, picture this. It's crunch time on a project, deadline's looming, everyone's a bit panicked, except, that is, for your ox coworker. They're calm, cool, collected.
Because they've been steadily working on it all along, no last-minute scramble for them.
Exactly. They're all about that slow and steady approach, always prepared.
Now, that's a work style I can get behind. But for those who might be new to the whole zodiac thing, how do we know if someone's an ox?
It's all about their birth year. We're talking 1925, 1937, 1949.
Let me guess, big years for agriculture. Just kidding.
Right. Though maybe they do have a green thumb. Who knows? But seriously, those years, plus 1961, 73, 85, 97, 2009, and most recently, 2021. If you were born in one of those years, congratulations, you're an ox.
All right, so someone born in, say, 2009, what might their personality look like based on what we're seeing in these sources?
You're looking at someone who's probably the most reliable person you know. Always the first to volunteer for a tough project, never shies away from responsibility.
The one you can always count on to follow through.
Absolutely. They make a promise, they keep it, rain or shine, no excuses.
That dependability must come in handy, especially since our oxen thrive on routine and planning. Is that part of what makes them such dedicated workers?
Oh, absolutely. They're not afraid of hard work, but they like to approach it strategically. Think of it like they're not just going to climb a mountain without first, getting the right gear.
Checking the weather forecast, packing snacks.
Exactly. They're all about that methodical approach. They need a plan.
So we've got this picture of the ox as this incredibly dependable, hardworking person. But what about their personal lives? Are they all work and no play?
That's where things get interesting. While oxen are incredibly loyal partners, incredible friends, they might need a little encouragement when it comes to, opening up emotionally.
They're not exactly wearing their hearts on their sleeves.
Not exactly. Think of it more like they're a slow-burning fire. It takes time for them to warm up, but once they do...
That warmth is the real deal.
Absolutely. They're not going to shower you with grand gestures every day, but they'll be there day in and day out offering quiet support.
It's that classic actions speak louder than words approach, isn't it?
You got it. They're not big on expressing their feelings out loud, but you can always feel their love and loyalty in everything they do.
Which is amazing, but I'm guessing even the most positive traits have their potential downsides. Time to address the elephant, or should I say ox in the room.
Right, because those strengths, they can sometimes, become a bit too much of a good thing.
So what are we talking about here? What are some potential pitfalls of those classic ox tendencies?
Well, that strong will, which can be amazing for achieving goals, it can also turn into, let's just say, stubbornness.
A bit inflexible.
You could say that. Imagine trying to convince an ox to, I don't know, try a new restaurant when they've been going to the same place for years.
They're creatures of habit.
Oh, absolutely. They like what they like, and they can be very resistant to change, even if it's for their own good.
And let's not forget their honesty, which, admirable trait and all, but
Sometimes it'd be nice if they'd sugarcoat things a little, right?
just a tad. They probably think they're just being straightforward, but it can come across as a bit harsh.
Exactly. Especially for those who are a bit more, shall we say, sensitive. They really value truth and integrity, which is great, but a little tact never hurt anyone.
Exactly. So we've got this picture of the ox. Hardworking, loyal, honest, maybe a tad, stubborn and blunt at times. But now I'm dying to know how all of this plays out in their relationships with other signs. We're starting with, you guessed it, love.
Oh, get ready for the cosmic matchmaking, because some signs, they just click with the ox, while others, well, let's just say it's a recipe for an astrological disaster.
All right, I am so ready for this. Who are the lucky signs that get to tango with the ox?
When it comes to love, the rat, snake, and rooster are considered the most compatible signs for our friend the ox.
Okay, let's break this down. Why the rat? What makes them such a good match for the ox?
Think about it. Rats, they're known for their quick wit, their adaptability, their ability to thrive even in chaos.
They bring the excitement, the spontaneity.
Exactly. And the ox provides that grounding, stable presence. Classic case of opposites attract.
So the rat might encourage the ox to loosen up a bit, to embrace life's surprises, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And the ox, in return, offers the rat that sense of security and stability they might secretly crave.
So it's a win-win, little give and take. Variety is the spice of life, as they say.
Right. Now let's move on to the snake. They're a fascinating match for the ox. Both signs, they value loyalty, they crave that deep connection, even if they express it in totally different ways.
And let's be real, the snake's mysterious vibe probably doesn't hurt either, right?
You know it, but it's deeper than that. The snake has this natural wisdom and ability to navigate all those complex emotions.
Which can be really alluring to the more practical, sometimes emotionally reserved ox.
Exactly. The snake just gets them, It's like they can read each other's minds.
Okay, so we've got the rat, the snake. Who else is on the ox's cosmic dance card?
Last but not least, we have the rooster. This is a pairing that's built on mutual respect, shared values.
And probably a shared love of a good to-do list.
Oh, absolutely. Like the ox, roosters are all about hard work. They're practical, detail-oriented.
They're both striving for that early bird gets the worm kind of success.
Exactly. Now, we've talked about those love matches, but are you ready for the other side of the coin?
Oh, I live for a little astro drama. Who are the signs that might make the ox's horns curl a bit?
Buckle up, because our sources tell us that the sheep, the horse, and the dog are considered the least compatible signs for the ox, at least when it comes to matters of the heart.
Let's start with the sheep. Why might this pairing be headed for a cosmic collision?
Well, remember how we talked about the ox's love of routine, their need for predictability?
That's kind of their comfort zone, right?
Exactly. Well, the sheep, they're all about throwing that routine out the window. They're free spirits, spontaneous.
They go where the wind takes them.
Precisely. Which you can imagine can be a bit much for the grounded ox to handle.
I can see how that clash of personalities could create some friction. So we've got the free-spirited sheep and the grounded ox. Not exactly a match made in astrological heaven. Who else might make the ox's love life a bit bumpy?
Next up, we have the horse. Now, horses, they need their freedom, they're independent, always on the move.
They're off to the races.
Which you can imagine can be a lot for the stability-loving ox to handle.
Like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole.
Right. The ox might be ready to settle down, build a cozy life together, while the horse is still, galloping towards the horizon.
So, again, not necessarily a lack of love, it's just a fundamental difference in how they approach commitment and togetherness.
Exactly. And finally, rounding out our list of least compatible love matches for the ox, we have the dog.
And I think we all know where this is going. The dog's honesty, while admirable, can sometimes be a lot.
It's especially in romantic relationships where those emotions are already running high.
Right. And the ox, despite that tough exterior, they can be a bit sensitive,
Absolutely. And the dog, bless their heart, They might not even realize they're being hurtful with their, let's just say, constructive criticism.
It's all about those different communication styles. Now, before we move on, I want to be clear. Just because two signs aren't astrologically compatible on paper doesn't mean their relationship is doomed.
Right. Astrology is just one lens through which we can view relationships. There's so much more to it than just sun signs.
Well said. Now, we've covered love, but what about friendship? Do those same compatibility patterns hold true when it comes to platonic relationships?
That's a great question. And the answer is, it's a bit of a mixed bag. Some of those love matches, like the rat and the rooster, they also make fantastic friends for the ox. But there are some interesting curveballs when we shift our focus to platonic connections.
Ooh, I love a good plot twist. Our sources mention that in addition to the rat and rooster, the dragon is another great match for the ox in friendship. Now, we haven't talked about the dragon yet. What is it about this mythical creature that clicks so well with the grounded and steady ox?
Well, you know, dragons are known for their dynamism. They're charismatic. They can light up a room.
They bring the energy.
Exactly. And that can be incredibly refreshing for the more routine-oriented ox.
So the dragon might encourage the ox to step outside their comfort zone, to try new things, right?
You got it. They're the ones dragging the ox to that karaoke bar or signing them up for that salsa class.
They're the friend who helps the ox embrace life's adventures. But I'm curious, if the dragon's the ultimate adventure buddy, who are the friends that might make the ox want to retreat to their quiet pasture?
Well, remember how we talked about the horse's love for freedom potentially clashing with the ox's need for structure in romantic relationships? Well, those same differences can also lead to some speed bumps in friendships.
That makes sense. The horse is off galloping toward the horizon, while the ox prefers to take things slow and steady.
Exactly. They might want to do completely different things, like the horse might be all about those last-minute road trips.
While the ox would rather, stay in and have a nice quiet dinner.
Precisely. And then you've got the monkey and the dog also making the list of least compatible friends for the ox.
Okay, let's unpack this. Why the monkey? I have a feeling their playful, sometimes mischievous nature might not always mesh well with the ox's more serious demeanor.
You're right on the money. Monkeys, they're fun, they're playful.
But maybe a little too all over the place for the ox.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The ox might need a break from all that energy. And then, of course, there's the dog. We've talked about how they're well-intentioned, but sometimes blunt honesty can be a bit much for the ox.
Yeah, that's probably true for any close relationship, romantic or platonic.
Exactly. Sometimes you just need a friend who's going to offer a little more reassurance, a little less tough love.
So while these pairings might require a bit more effort and understanding to thrive, it's important to remember that astrology is just one piece of the puzzle. Just because two signs aren't astrologically compatible doesn't mean they can't have a successful and fulfilling relationship.
Absolutely. There are countless other factors at play. Shared interests, life experiences, you name it.
Well said. Now, we've explored the ox's compatibility in love and friendship, but our deep dive isn't over yet. Next up, we'll be exploring how the ox navigates the world of work and business.
We're diving into the ox's professional life.
We've established they're all about hard work, but how does that actually play out in their careers? What kind of jobs are they drawn to?
Well, our sources paint a pretty clear picture. Think fields that require precision, patience.
Attention to detail.
Oh, you better believe it. We're talking engineering, finance, anything where you need someone who's going to dot every I and cross every T.
And probably do it ahead of schedule.
Most likely. And here's the thing. They actually find satisfaction in those meticulous tasks that would make other signs run for the hills.
It's not just about the work itself. It's about that feeling of accomplishment.
Exactly. A job well done. But of course, those strengths, they can also be a double-edged sword, especially in team settings.
Because sometimes you need to be able to go with the flow, be a little flexible.
Right. And that's not exactly the ox's strong suit. They like things a certain way, which, in a collaborative environment,
can lead to some friction. Any tips for those who might find themselves managing an ox? Or even just working alongside one?
Communication is key. Don't just spring a new idea on them or change a deadline without warning.
They need a little time to adjust, wrap their heads around it.
Exactly. Explain the why, the how, involve them in the process.
So they don't feel like they're being blindsided. Now let's talk workplace compatibility. Any surprises on our list of ideal coworkers?
You know me, always ready to play a little cosmic matchmaker. And some of these pairings, let's just say they're destined to be best cubicle buddies.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Who gets to be the ox's work wife or work husband?
Once again, the rat takes the cake.
Those two, they just click. What is it about that dynamic that works so well, professionally speaking?
Well, they just complement each other so well. The rat, they're full of ideas, always thinking outside the box.
And the ox can take those ideas, make them a reality.
Precisely. They ground the rat's energy, turn those sparks of inspiration into concrete plans.
A true power duo. Now, what about the snake? I have a feeling they might be a good fit for the ox in the workplace as well.
You're on a roll. Snakes, they bring that natural intuition, the diplomacy.
They're the ones who can navigate those tricky office politics.
Exactly. They're the quiet strategists working behind the scenes to make sure everything runs smoothly. A valuable ally for any ox.
And of course, we can't forget the rooster, strutting their stuff straight into the boardroom.
You said it. And they're not just there for show. Roosters, they bring that same work ethic, that attention to detail.
Those color-coded spreadsheets.
Oh, absolutely. They thrive in a structured environment. They understand the ox's need for order, for efficiency.
It's a recipe for a productive and, let's be real, probably very organized workplace. But now let's talk about those work relationships that might require a little more, well, effort.
Yes. Time to face the music. And unsurprisingly, our friend the horse, they're back on the list of potentially challenging dynamics.
Which, after our compatibility deep dive in the love and friendship departments, not really a shock.
Not at all. Those same personality differences, that love of freedom, that need for speed.
It can create some friction, especially in the workplace.
Absolutely. The horse might be raring to go, suggesting some radical new approach.
And the ox is like, whoa, slow down there, buddy. We have a system for a reason.
Exactly. They can butt heads if they're not careful. And then we have the monkey who, well, let's just say they're not exactly known for their laser focus.
Those playful monkeys. Always so full of energy.
Which is great for, after work drinks or something. But in a professional setting.
It can be a bit much for the more serious, task-oriented ox.
Exactly. They might find themselves constantly having to wrangle the monkey's attention, redirect their energy.
Which can be exhausting for anyone.
Oh, tell me about it. And last but not least, we have the dog.
Back for another round of potentially awkward workplace encounters.
You know it. And it all comes back to that well-intentioned but sometimes brutal honesty.
Which, in a professional setting where those boundaries are already so important,
it can be a recipe for disaster, especially if the ox is feeling a bit insecure or unsure of themselves.
Right. Because even if the dog's feedback is valid,
it's all about the delivery.
Exactly. Tone is everything. We've explored the ox's personality, their love life, their friendships, even their office dynamics. But something tells me we've only scratched the surface of this hardworking sign.
You're right. We haven't even touched on one crucial dimension of the ox family. And trust me, this is where they truly shine. Family is everything to them.
Our sources definitely emphasize that. It's like family is their rock, their safe haven.
Absolutely. It's the place where they can truly be themselves, let their guard down, and they're not just passive participants in family life either.
They're the ones organizing the reunions, keeping those traditions alive.
You got it. And they're incredibly dedicated parents as well.
Oh, I bet. Instilling those classic values of hard work, dedication, all that good stuff.
Absolutely. They lead by example, show their kids what it means to be responsible, committed.
They sound like the kind of parents who would do anything for their children.
Oh, without a doubt. Now, are you ready for another round of cosmic family matchmaking?
Bring it on. Who are the signs that create that picture-perfect family portrait with the ox?
Well, unsurprisingly, the rat, snake, and rooster are back. Seems like they just can't get enough of the ox.
All right, let's start with the rat. We've talked about how their quick wit and adaptability complement the ox's grounded nature, but how does that dynamic work in a family setting?
It's all about balance. The rat parent brings the fun, the spontaneity, keeps things interesting.
While the ox provides the structure, the stability.
Exactly. It's a recipe for a happy, well-rounded upbringing. And then you've got the snake, who brings their emotional depth and intuition to the table.
Which, for the sometimes emotionally reserved ox,
can be a game changer. The snake just gets them, understands their unspoken feelings.
It's like they have this secret language.
Right. And we can't forget the rooster. Always a good time with them around.
Especially in a family setting, right?
Right.
They're both so organized, value those same traditions.
Absolutely. Shared values, shared routines. It just works.
Yeah.
But of course, it wouldn't be a compatibility deep dive without a little bit of drama, right?
Oh, you know me too well.
Mm-hmm.
Who are the in-laws that might make the ox want to cancel family dinner?
Well, you're probably not going to be shocked to hear that the sheep, horse and dog are back to stir things up a bit.
Those three, always keeping us on our toes.
Yeah.
Let's start with the sheep. I have a feeling their free-spirited nature and, let's be real, aversion to routine. It might clash with the ox's more structured parenting style.
You're reading my mind. Imagine the sheep grandparent swooping in, showering the kids with sugary treats.
While the ox is trying to enforce some semblance of a bedtime.
Exactly. And it's not that either approach is wrong, it's just different. And those differences can create some tension if they're not careful.
Communication is key, yet again. Now, what about the horse? They love their freedom, always on the move. How does that play out in a family dynamic with the more grounded, family-oriented ox?
Let's just say it can be a bit of a balancing act. The horse relative who pops in for a whirlwind visit, then disappears again for months.
Not exactly the most reliable babysitter.
Right. And the ox, who values those consistent connections, might feel a bit neglected.
It's about finding that balance between honoring your own need for freedom and being present for your family.
Exactly. And lastly, we have the dog, back for another round of potentially tense family gatherings.
I'm sensing a theme here. What is it about the dog that can sometimes create friction in close relationships?
Well, their intentions are good. They're loyal. They're protective.
But that honesty can be a bit much sometimes.
Especially when it's directed at family members, right? Unsolicited advice, a little too much criticism.
Even if they mean well, it can sting.
Absolutely. It all comes back to communication styles, being mindful of how our words impact others.
Well said.
The tiger's, well, it's more than just a symbol,
Right.
It's like really woven into Chinese culture and all that, like values, personality traits, it all ties back to the tiger for those born under its sign.
It's the third sign in the zodiac,
That's right.
And I'm seeing a lot of power words in these excerpts. Strength, courage, even a little rebellion thrown in there. Who wouldn't want a bit of that?
It's a potent combination.
It is. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's do a quick rundown. Which years are we actually talking about when we say Year of the Tiger?
Oh, of course. So anyone born in 26, 38, 50, 62, 74, 86, 98, 2010, or most recently, 2022.
Okay.
Those are our tigers.
All right, tigers, listen up. This one's for you. Okay, let's talk personality. What are some of those classic tiger traits? What makes them roar, metaphorically speaking?
Well, I mean, just from what you sent over, it's clear natural leaders.
Yeah.
They just have this air about them, confidence, charisma, and ambitious. They know what they want and they go for it.
They don't hold back.
No, not really. Tigers are passionate, especially about things they believe in, and they'll fight for what they think is right.
So that classic image of the tiger in the wild, right?
Exactly.
Not exactly a shrinking violet.
Good.
But I'm guessing all that intensity, it's got to have a flip side, right?
Oh, for sure. It's a double-edged sword, right? That boldness, sometimes it means they jump in without looking. Impulsive.
Yeah.
Which, hey, can be exciting, spontaneous. But, it also shows us where they can, maybe work on things a bit. Patience isn't always their strong suit.
Right.
That go-getter attitude needs a little strategy sometimes, you know? That's how they'll really go far.
So true. It's their biggest strength can also be their downfall if they don't keep it in check.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
I'm also seeing a lot about tigers and change. They really seem to embrace it.
Oh, absolutely.
Tell me about that.
Well, they're not exactly routine kind of people. Tigers need novelty. They've got to be exploring, shaking things up, pushing those boundaries. Imagine a tiger stuck in a cage. That's not a happy tiger.
Definitely not.
They've got to be free to roam and conquer. That's where they thrive.
So we've talked about tigers going after what they want, conquering new territory.
Mm-hmm.
Makes you wonder how they handle relationships, right?
Right?
With all that energy and drive, finding a good match.
Yeah.
It's got to be its own adventure, right?
It really is. And it's interesting. The stuff you sent over, it actually spends a lot of time on this whole compatibility thing.
Really?
Yeah. Some signs just, they vibe better with that tiger energy than others.
Okay, now you've got me curious. Spill the tea. Who are these, ideal pairings?
All right. So when it comes to love, romance, that whole thing, we're looking at the horse, the dog, and, get this, the pig. Those are looking good for our tigers.
Wow, okay. That's an interesting mix.
Yeah.
I can totally see the horse. Two adventurous souls, always up for a good time. But dog and pig, That feels different.
See, that's the thing about balance. The horse, it's like they double down on that tiger zest for life, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
But the dog, they bring that grounding energy, like super loyal, dependable. A tiger can really, relax a bit with that. And then pigs, they're all about the care, the affection, make a tiger feel super appreciated.
So it's like the adventure buddy, the rock, and the biggest cheerleader all in one.
There you go.
I like it. But gotta ask, what about the not so good matches, the ones that might make a tiger want to, show their claws a bit?
Yeah. Well, according to this compatibility chart you sent, looks like monkeys, snakes, and roosters, they tend to be the trickiest for tigers.
They do seem like very different personalities, you're right. What is it about those signs that clash?
Let's see. Monkeys, they can be, well, kind of clever. Cunning, even. And remember how straightforward tigers are? Yeah, that can rub them the wrong way. Like, tigers value honesty, being direct, all that. Monkeys more roundabout way of doing things. Not always a hit.
So there's a communication breakdown. Like, they're speaking different languages even when they're saying the same words.
Exactly. Now, snakes, they're the opposite problem. Super reserved, always kind of calculating their next move. Tigers are all hard on their sleeves, so that can breed a lot of mistrust.
Yeah, I can see that. Not exactly a recipe for harmony.
Nope. And then we got roosters, all about organization, dotting their I's, crossing their T's, which, hey, can be great, but
clash with the tiger's spontaneous side.
ding, 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 we have a winner. Roosters can be a little too critical, maybe, and that can stifle a tiger's, creative fire.
It's giving constant power struggle. Like, neither one wants to back down.
You got it. And remember, this isn't just romantic relationships, okay? This is friends, family, even coworkers.
Oh, especially at work. If you're a tiger working with a rooster, better pack extra patience for those Monday morning meetings.
Yeah.
Speaking of work, I'm guessing those ideal pairings, the horses, the dogs, those are the dream team colleagues too.
Oh, 100%. That shared love for adventure, for one, and loyalty, mutual respect. Those are big in any workplace. Imagine a tiger and a horse brainstorming together.
Oh, the energy.
Electric. So much ambition, they'd be unstoppable.
And dogs, they bring that steady hand to the wheel.
Exactly. Reliable, always got your back. Lets a tiger do their thing, you know? Plus, they're great with structure, help channel all that tiger energy in the right direction. Classic case of opposites attract, professionally speaking, of course.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've got our A-team, horses, dogs. What about the potential issues? Are roosters back to their old tricks in the workplace?
Oh, yeah. That whole meticulous versus let's just go for it thing, recipe for disaster. And this might surprise you, but snakes can be tricky at work, too.
Really? Why is that? I would thought they'd be more like head down, get the job done types.
They are, but remember how we talked about them being kind of secretive?
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't always fly in an office environment. Tigers are all about transparency, clear communication. When a snake's holding their cards close to the vest, it can cause friction.
So it's that constant balance of being independent, but also a team player. Makes you think about family dynamics, too. With that strong sense of loyalty, I bet family is huge for tigers.
Absolutely. Huge. And no surprise here, your sources say horses and dogs, top contenders for family life, too.
Makes sense. Family vacations are probably epic with a horse in the mix, and then you've got that dog energy, creating a super loving, stable home base.
Exactly. The horse keeps things exciting, lets those tiger cubs explore, while the dog makes sure everyone feels safe and loved.
Sounds pretty idyllic, actually. But I'd be shocked if any family dynamic was totally smooth sailing, even with those pairings. What are some things tigers should watch out for in a family setting?
Well, the excerpts did mention that snakes and monkeys, they might need a little extra TLC within a family.
Snakes, okay. Why would they be tough in a family?
They're just naturally more serious, reserved. And that can be a bit of a clash with the tiger's playful side, all that energy, especially with their own family.
Makes sense. It's about finding that balance, respecting those differences in personality and pace of life, even within a family.
Right. And then monkeys, well, they're all about that indirect communication, jokes, wit, all that, even for serious stuff.
Which tigers don't always pick up on.
Sometimes, yeah. And that can lead to misunderstandings, hurt feelings, especially with family.
Because those are the relationships that matter most, so those misunderstandings cut deeper.
For sure. But remember, these are all just potential bumps in the road, not like relationship death sentences. Open communication, empathy, trying to see things from the other person's point of view, that's key for any relationship, zodiac sign or not.
We've been talking about all this tiger energy, right? But even tigers need to chill sometimes, right?
Totally.
It can't all be go, go, go. What about well-being? What did your research say about how tigers can find that balance?
Yeah, that's actually a big theme in these excerpts, like finding that off switch.
Yeah.
Because they're so, driven, ambitious. Burnout's a real thing if they don't make time for themselves.
Like a high-performance engine. Got to let it cool down or it'll overheat.
Perfect analogy. Stress management is huge. Things like mindfulness, meditation, even just getting out in nature. Anything to hit the reset button.
Find that calm in the chaos.
Exactly.
Speaking of a chaos, I did notice the excerpts talk about tigers and, well, money. Like there's potential for success, but also a bit of a risk-taker vibe.
It's true. It's true. That's where self-awareness is key. A lot of tigers are drawn to, being their own boss, taking big swings.
They're not afraid of a little risk.
Not at all. Which, hey, can pay off big time. But that impulsivity, if it's not balanced with a little planning, that's where things can go sideways.
So it's about being strategic, not just jumping in blind.
Exactly. A good financial advisor, a mentor, that can be a game changer for a tiger. A little planning goes a long way.
It's the difference between a roller coaster and a car crash.
Right. That's a good one.
Still get the thrill, but with a little more control.
I like it.
Okay, before we wrap up, got to ask about this whole element of surprise thing. What's the deal with that?
Oh, right. So it's not just the animal, right? Each year's also got one of 5 elements: wood, fire, earth, metal, water. Adds another layer to the whole thing.
Okay, so what's the difference between, say, a water tiger and a fire tiger?
Good question. Let's see, the 2022 water tiger, those folks, they're all about courage, obviously, but also very intuitive. They've got that tiger drive, but it's a little more, adaptable, go with the flow.
Interesting.
Now, contrast that with the 86 fire tiger, super intense, passionate, and yeah, maybe a little quick-tempered at times.
Wow, night and day. So the element really does kind of set the tone for the tiger personality.
100%. It's like you've got the tiger blueprint, but then the element adds its own personal flair.
Like a fingerprint. Each tiger is totally unique.
Love that.
Before we go, I wanted to touch on the tiger's creative side.
Yeah.
What is it about them that makes them such great artists, innovators,
Honestly, it's just who they are. Tigers don't follow the crowd. They make their own rules. They see the world differently. Always asking questions, pushing those boundaries. It's that desire to make something new, something that reflects their own vision. That's where that creative spark comes in.
It's in their blood.
Totally.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, learned so much about these fascinating tigers.
You really have.
Any final thoughts for our listeners?
Just that, the tiger is this incredible symbol of energy, of power. They're leaders, risk takers, protectors, all wrapped up in one. And that passion, that zest for life, it's contagious.
But like any powerful force, it needs to be channeled the right way.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's all about that balance, between adventure and stability, knowing yourself, building strong relationships, finding healthy ways to express all that energy. That's the key for a tiger to really thrive.
And on that note, it's your turn, listeners. Whether you're a tiger or not, what resonates with you about this sign? Maybe, just maybe, there's a little bit of tiger in all of us. So I guess to start, for anyone listening who is not familiar, What is the one-sentence summary of a rabbit?
They are elegant, gentle, sensitive diplomats of the zodiac.
Okay, I like that. So less of that kind of, hopping around, more
graceful.
Graceful, yeah, exactly.
Very peaceful.
Okay, so if someone's listening and they're like, oh my gosh, that's totally me, they might be a rabbit.
Or have some strong rabbit influences in their chart, yeah. So let's dive into some strengths and weaknesses.
Okay, yeah, let's do it.
So, Year of the Rabbit highlights diplomacy as a huge strength.
Makes sense.
They're compassionate, socially skilled, great at bringing people together.
Yeah, I could see that.
Usually pretty creative, intuitive. They tend to land on their feet.
Oh, so they're lucky too.
Yeah, they got that lucky rabbit's foot energy.
Like with all strengths, I imagine there are some potential downsides.
For sure, every coin has 2 sides, right?
Exactly. So what are we looking at here?
Well, take that peace-loving nature, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it can tip into conflict avoidance. Like they'd rather just keep things calm than rock the boat, even if it means not addressing something.
So not that they're pushovers necessarily. It's more like they're choosing when to expend their energy.
Exactly. They're very conscious of that.
Okay. I can respect that.
And, that cautious side of them, it makes them thoughtful, but it can also make them indecisive.
Oh, yeah.
Overthinking every little decision, weighing every outcome, classic rabbit.
That tracks with some of the rabbits that I know, for sure.
Yeah, they definitely take their time.
But speaking of relationships, since that's kind of what we're talking about here, what about compatibility? Is there like a perfect match for a rabbit?
Well, the goats, dogs, and pigs top the list for love.
Wow, that's an interesting mix. Why those three? What makes them such a good fit?
Well, goats and rabbits, they're both very gentle, artistic souls.
Okay.
They really need that understanding, compassionate environment to thrive.
Yeah, so it's like a very nurturing, supportive kind of love.
Very much so. Low on drama, high on harmony.
Very nice. I like it.
Yeah.
What about dogs?
Dogs, they bring that steadfast loyalty, the protectiveness,
Right.
and that really complements the rabbit's sensitive nature.
Yeah, you need that balance.
Exactly. So they offer security, stability, and it allows the rabbit to really blossom.
So dogs sound great, whether we're talking romance or just like...
Or even just a really good friend.
Yeah, exactly. Someone to have your back.
Exactly.
And pigs, what about those pairings?
Pigs are all about enjoying life, right? They're generous, they love comfort, they appreciate the finer things, and honestly, that lines up perfectly with the rabbit's desire for a peaceful, harmonious home life.
So they both want that kind of cozy, happy existence together.
Yeah, very much so.
Okay, that's really interesting. But now I'm curious about the opposite end of the spectrum.
Oh, you want to dive into the potential clashes?
Oh, yeah. Who are some signs that rabbits might want to, I don't know, approach with caution in the love department?
You know, it's funny because roosters are a classic example of opposites attract.
Oh, really?
But in this case, it's not always a good thing.
Okay.
Roosters can be, how do I put this, blunt?
Yeah, I was going to say.
And for a sensitive rabbit, that directness can be a little jarring.
Yeah, that tracks.
One critical comment from a rooster, and the rabbit's likely to retreat.
For sure. It's like a completely different communication style.
Exactly. Very different.
Okay, so roosters, proceed with caution. Who else we got?
Snakes can be tricky too because they're all about mystery, intrigue.
Oh, yeah.
But for the open-hearted rabbit, that can breed suspicion, misunderstanding.
Right, so not exactly the foundation for a strong, trusting relationship.
Not ideal, no.
Okay, what else?
This one might surprise you, dragons.
Oh, really? Because I was going to say, those seem pretty cool.
They are. They're seen as powerful, exciting partners.
Yeah, definitely. Super charismatic, I bet.
But they can be a little too much for a rabbit.
Oh, too intense.
A little, yeah. That dragon ambition, the need to be in the spotlight, it can overshadow the rabbit's quieter nature.
So the rabbit might feel a little or pressured to keep up, which isn't really their style.
Right, exactly.
Not the most fulfilling dynamic long term.
Okay, so roosters, snakes, dragons, all on the watch list.
For love, at least.
Right, exactly. Because I'm sure there are other areas where those signs might, gel really well.
Absolutely. But that's a conversation for another time. We've got friendships, work, even business partnerships to consider.
Ooh. Yeah, this is getting good. I want to hear all about those rabbit friendships. Tell me everything.
You know what's interesting? Monkeys can actually be incredibly stimulating friends for rabbits.
Really? I would not have guessed that.
Yeah, it seems counterintuitive, right?
Because you think of monkeys and you're like, oh, they're the life of the party. Always on the go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But somehow it works. How so?
Well, monkeys bring that playfulness, that sense of adventure.
Right.
And that can help coax the rabbit out of their shell a little bit.
Oh, I like that.
Encourage them to embrace spontaneity.
So it's not about changing who the rabbit is.
No, not at all.
It's more like just kind of broadening their horizons a bit.
Exactly. Expanding that comfort zone,
I like it.
And the best part is their differences really complement each other.
How so?
Well, you've got the monkey's quick wit, the rabbit's creativity.
Oh, yeah, that's a good combo.
It makes for a lot of laughter, shared experiences.
Yeah, they could definitely keep each other entertained, I bet.
Oh, absolutely. They bring out different sides of each other.
I love that. Okay, what other signs should we be adding to this friend group?
Tigers and rabbits can form a surprisingly strong bond as well.
Now that one throws me for a loop.
Right. Because tigers, they're known for that bold energy.
Super bold. So how does that work with a rabbit?
It's all about balance, right? That yin and yang tigers, they can inspire rabbits to be a little more daring.
Oh, I like that.
To step outside their comfort zone.
Yeah, try new things.
Exactly. And on the flip side, the rabbit's grounded nature, it offers the tiger some peace, some stability.
So they each bring something to the table that the other one needs.
Exactly. It's that opposites attract thing, but in a way that really, really works.
I love it when that happens.
Me too.
Yeah.
It's the best case scenario.
For sure. Okay, so we got monkeys, we got tigers. Who else? Who else is invited to this party?
Horses are a fantastic match for rabbits.
Oh, yeah. Horses are fun.
They are. They're sociable, energetic, always up for anything.
Yeah, they're like the friend that's always down for an adventure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Always there to lift the rabbit's spirits.
I love it. It's like having a built-in cheering section.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay, but now I'm curious about the flip side.
Ah, you want to talk about the more challenging pairings?
Yeah, because, not every friendship is sunshine and rainbows.
Well, remember how we talked about roosters potentially being a tough match romantically because of their communication style?
Yeah, those blunt comments.
Right. Well, that doesn't magically disappear in friendships.
Yeah, that tracks.
It can still create friction, hurt feelings.
Yeah, for sure.
So roosters proceed with caution.
Who else we got?
Rats.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What's the issue there?
Rats can be charming, I'll give them that.
Okay.
But they also have a tendency to be a little cunning, maybe even manipulative.
Oh, so they might play games.
A little bit, yeah. And that can make it hard for the straightforward rabbit to fully trust them.
Yeah, rabbits are all about that genuine connection, that authenticity.
Precisely. They can see right through any BS.
Okay, rats are out. What about oxen?
Oxen can be a bit much for a rabbit, honestly.
Holy how so?
They're just so intense. They've got that unwavering work ethic, that stubborn streak.
Which can be admirable, I'm sure.
Oh, for sure. But for the go-with-the-flow rabbit, it can feel overwhelming.
Like they're speaking different languages.
Exactly. Totally different vibe.
Okay, so we got to be careful with oxen. Any other signs we should be wary of?
It's funny because even monkeys, who we said can be great friends.
Right, the life of the party.
Exactly. But they can also bring challenges to the table.
Wait, really? I thought their playful energy was a good thing.
It can be, but they also love a good prank.
Ah.
And their unpredictable nature, it doesn't always mesh well with the rabbit's need for security, emotional stability.
So it's like a gamble?
A little bit, yeah. It all depends on finding that balance, respecting each other's boundaries.
Makes sense. Okay, so we've covered love, we've covered friendships. What about work? Because I feel like that's where things can get really interesting.
Work compatibility is crucial.
So who are the dream coworkers and business partners for rabbits?
So interestingly enough, tigers, who we talked about as good friends.
Oh, right, the yin and yang.
Exactly. They also make excellent collaborators in a professional setting.
Now that I wouldn't have guessed, because you think, oh, bold go-getter. How does that work?
Well, the tiger's ambition and drive can actually really help the rabbit reach their full potential.
Oh, interesting.
The rabbit's all about the details, bringing people together, and that complements the tiger's vision.
They both bring something really important.
Exactly. And you put it all together, you've got a winning team.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, what about some of the other signs we talked about?
Well, we can't forget about dogs in the workplace, right?
Loyal and dependable.
Exactly. They're the coworkers you can always count on.
The best.
Create that sense of stability that rabbits really thrive in.
Yeah, they're like, I'll handle this. You go do your creative thing.
Precisely.
Perfect. Okay, who else we got?
Horses.
Of course. Always bringing the energy.
Always. They're adaptable, enthusiastic, love a challenge, and that's contagious.
Yeah, it rubs off on everyone.
Definitely. Rabbits can feed off that energy, and great things happen.
That's awesome. So tigers, dogs, horses, all good for the rabbit's professional life. What about the opposite?
Let's see, where do we even begin?
Yeah, who's trouble?
Well, you probably saw this coming, but roosters, not ideal.
Oh, no, not the roosters again.
I know, but remember those communication issues. Exactly. And in a work setting where tensions can already be high.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, it can create a very, awkward, uncomfortable dynamic.
Definitely.
So roosters, a no-go. Who else?
Snakes.
Oh, right, because they're all secretive.
Exactly. And sometimes their ethics are a little, let's just say, questionable.
Ooh. Yeah, that's not good.
Not really. So that can breed a lot of mistrust.
And that's the last thing you want at work.
The last thing you want. You need that foundation of trust.
Yes.
Especially in a professional setting.
Exactly. Okay, what about dragons? I know they can be intense romantically.
Right. And it's actually similar in the workplace.
Really?
They're ambitious, I'll give them that, very driven, but they really need to be in control, love the recognition.
Yeah, it's their way or the highway.
Kind of, and that can rub a rabbit the wrong way.
Yeah, because they're all about collaboration.
Exactly, so it can lead to some power struggles, resentment.
Not good for anyone.
Definitely not. So while it's not impossible to make it work.
Right. Some dragons and rabbits can probably figure it out.
Oh, for sure. But it takes a lot of effort, a lot of open communication.
And a willingness to compromise.
Well, absolutely. You've got to meet in the middle.
Okay, so basically, whether we're talking love, friendship, work, it all comes down to balance.
Balance is key.
Finding those signs that complement each other.
Yeah.
Where The strengths of one kind of fill in the gaps for the other.
Exactly. And rabbits have so much to offer in all of those areas.
That's a great point. They're more than just their zodiac sign, right?
No, absolutely. And speaking of which, there's one more layer to the rabbit that I think is fascinating. It's their connection to the lunar calendar and the element of wood.
I always find that stuff so fascinating. Break it down for me.
Well, rabbits are closely associated with the moon, which makes sense.
Because they're intuitive.
Exactly. And they've got that emotional depth.
They're very in tune with their feelings and everyone else's feelings.
Very much so. And then there's the wood element.
Okay.
And wood represents growth, creativity, adaptability.
Oh, wow. Those are all very rabbit-like qualities.
Right. It's like these cosmic influences are amplifying those natural rabbit talents.
So it makes you wonder, like, how does that actually play out in a person's life? Are rabbits naturally drawn to more creative fields? Are they able to navigate those tricky social situations with grace because of this wood and moon connection? It's fascinating.
It really is, and it's a good reminder that there's always more to learn, always more to explore.
Absolutely. This has been such a fascinating deep dive.
My pleasure.
Any final thoughts for our listeners to ponder?
Well, given everything we've talked about today, all those amazing rabbit qualities, it makes me wonder, could rabbits be the ultimate peacemakers of the zodiac?
Ooh, that is a great question. They certainly have the diplomacy, the compassion. Maybe the world needs more rabbits.
The year of the dragon, uncovering those secrets,
It's funny, right? When we think dragon, it's usually those fierce creatures from Western stories. But the Chinese dragon, totally different vibe.
Yeah, totally. Like opposite ends of the mythical creature spectrum, right?
So what's the deal with the Chinese dragon? What makes it so different?
Well, it's more than just a symbol. In Chinese culture, the dragon is seen as this benevolent force, connected to water, rain, all that good stuff. Imagine this majestic dragon soaring through the sky, bringing the promise of good harvests and all.
Wow. Okay, that's a powerful image. Definitely changes my perspective. So with that in mind, what about people born in the year of the dragon? How does this all connect?
People born in the year of the dragon, whether it's 1952, 1976, 2012, even the upcoming 2024, they tend to share certain core traits. They're often charismatic, very confident, ambitious, often radiate an energy that draws people in.
That magnetic pull everyone talks about? Exactly. But it goes beyond just charisma. Dragons are also incredibly intelligent, driven to learn, to understand the world around them.
So not just the life of the party, but people who are going places. But even with all that, gotta have some quirks, right? What are some challenges of having such a, let's say, fiery personality?
It's like a fire, right? Burns too brightly, sure, it's warm, it's energy, but get too close and, well, dragons, with all their energy, their passion, they can be impulsive sometimes, impatient, maybe even a tad arrogant now and then.
Their strength, their weakness, all in one, huh?
Yeah.
Makes you wonder, who can handle that dragon energy? Who meshes well with that kind of personality?
It's not just about tolerating the dragon's fire, but complementing it, balancing it out.
Okay, so who are these brave souls? Spill the tea.
Our sources point to monkeys as a strong match. Playful, full of life, blends well with that dragon adventurous spirit.
I can see it. What is it about monkeys specifically? What makes them such a good match?
Humor, for one. Monkeys can lighten the mood, bring that playfulness to serious situations. And for dragons, who can sometimes take themselves too seriously, that's grounding.
So the monkey lightens things up, keeps it fun. Love it. Any other signs? Who else can keep up with a dragon?
Rats are another good pairing. They're clever, resourceful, excellent partners in life and work. Not afraid of ambition either, which resonates with the dragon's drive.
So they challenge and inspire each other. Monkeys for the wild ride, rats for the power couple energy. Anyone else make the cut on this compatibility list?
This might surprise you, but roosters. Roosters can be a surprisingly good match for dragons.
Really? How so? Seems a bit out of left field.
It does, right? But roosters, they're practical, meticulous. They bring balance to the dragon's life.
While the dragon chases their dreams, the roosters make sure the bills are paid, the details are handled. Okay, I see it. But before we get too carried away with compatibility, we got to talk about the elephant, or, well, the element in the room.
You're right. Knowing someone's a dragon isn't enough. You got to know what kind of dragon they are.
Okay, now you've got me intrigued. What do you mean, what kind?
Think about those old myths, right? A fire-breathing dragon versus a water dragon. Totally different creatures. It's the same with the Chinese elements. Wood, fire, earth, metal, water. Each one influences the dragon's personality in a unique way.
So each element adds its own little spice to the mix, huh? Give us a taste. How do these elemental dragons differ? Let's start with wood dragons. What makes them stand out?
Wood dragons, they're the generous ones, open-minded, always see the bigger picture, always willing to lend a hand. They're all about making the world a better place.
I love that. Okay, what about fire dragons? Those have got to be intense, right?
Oh, you said it. Fire dragons. Dragon energy, amplified, passionate, dynamic. You can't ignore them. They light up every room they walk into.
Wow, what a presence. Okay, so fire dragons are intense. What about earth dragons? Are they as grounded as their element suggests?
Absolutely. Earth dragons are the rocks of the zodiac. Reliable, practical, always there when you need them. The ones you want on your team when something needs to get done.
Now, those are good qualities. Okay, so we've got wood, fire, earth. Who are we missing?
We've got metal dragons, strong-willed, determined, not afraid of a challenge. They've got this inner strength, a resilience that helps them overcome anything.
The ones who just power through, huh?
Exactly. And last, but certainly not least, we've got the water dragons. Adaptable, intuitive, navigate the world with this grace, this fluidity. They go with the flow, always seem to land on their feet.
That's amazing. Even within the year of the dragon, so many different personalities.
Exactly. That's what makes exploring the Chinese Zodiac so fascinating. It's not just about assigning general characteristics. It's recognizing the ways these energies work together, how they manifest in each person.
This is blowing my mind. Let's take a step back, look at the big picture. What does it mean to be a dragon? Like in the context of Chinese culture as a whole?
That's a great question. Right. So the dragon in Chinese culture, it's more than just astrology. It's not just a personality. It's woven into their history, their myths, even their everyday lives.
Okay, so paint the picture for us. What are some real-world examples? Where do we see this influence?
Well, think about Chinese New Year. You see those amazing dragon dances, these incredible costumes weaving through the streets, the music, the energy. It's not just a show, though.
No.
It's about invoking the dragon's energy. They want that good fortune for the year ahead.
So the dragon leads the parade, bringing all that prosperity, that good luck. Sounds incredible.
It really is something to see. And it's more than festivals, too. You see the dragon everywhere, on temples and old art, even clothing. It represents power, but not in a, controlling way, more like a force for good.
Yeah.
Growth, resilience, overcoming challenges. That's the dragon.
That's pretty powerful when you think about it. Not just strength, but the ability to thrive, to rise above. So we talked about personality, right? Best matches for dragons, even how the elements play in. But what about when two dragons collide? Like in a relationship, what happens then?
Oh, dragon on dragon. Never boring, that's for sure. Just imagine two people used to taking charge, both bursting with ideas, that classic dragon drive.
Sounds intense, to say the least. Recipe for disaster, or can they actually make it work?
With dragons, it's never simple. On the one hand, they get each other right. They understand the ambition, the zest for life. They can push each other, inspire each other in a way other signs can't.
It's like having a cheerleader who truly gets it, gets you.
Yeah, exactly. But,
Sure.
and this is a big but, that intensity, it can cause friction too. Who's the alpha? Whose dreams come first? It's tricky.
So it's a fine line, huh? Admiration on one side, potential power struggle on the other. Sounds like it takes work.
It does. Open communication.
Yeah.
Essential for a dragon pair. And let's be real, dragons aren't exactly known for subtlety.
You can say that again.
So for it to work, they got to master that direct but respectful communication style.
Yeah.
No fire breathing, metaphorically speaking. They need to learn when to support, when to encourage a step back,
Yeah.
avoid burnout,
Maybe it's not just who the dragon is, but what kind of fire they're working with. We talked about those elements, right? They factor in here too.
You got it. 5 elements, another layer of complexity, especially with 2 dragons in the mix.
Okay, crash course in elemental dragon romance. Hit me. What's the difference between, say, a fire dragon in love versus a water dragon?
Get ready for fireworks.
Yeah.
Passionate, spontaneous, grand gestures. They need a partner who can keep up with that intensity.
Sounds like a whirlwind. So who can handle that heat? Another fire sign.
Could be. Fire signs, tigers, horses. They're drawn to that energy. But it can lead to clashes if they don't learn to control it. Ironically, earth signs, they can be a good match long term. They're grounding, provide stability.
Opposites attract, right. Makes sense. What about water dragons, though? They seem a bit more mysterious, maybe.
Water dragons are interesting. They've got that ambition, but it's tempered by adaptability, emotional depth, their relationships. Less about the fireworks, more about a deep connection.
So quiet understanding instead of grand gestures. Sharing dreams, that kind of thing.
Exactly. They connect with intuitive signs. Rabbits, maybe snakes.
Yeah.
Someone who values that depth, that emotional intimacy.
This is fascinating stuff. It's like a whole new way to think about relationships. Speaking of different approaches, though, we've been all about love, compatibility. But what about the dragon's impact on something more practical? Careers, for example.
Right, the dragon in the workplace.
Ah.
Think about those core traits. Ambitious, charismatic, natural leaders. Those are valuable in any profession.
So we're picturing dragons as CEOs, entrepreneurs, those
Yeah.
people who just make things happen.
Exactly. They do well in environments where they can lead, use their creativity, inspire their team. They're charismatic, so leadership roles suit them. And they're smart, quick learners, great at solving problems.
Sounds like they could conquer any job. But remember that dragon fire we talked about? The impulsiveness, the need for control? Does that ever backfire at work?
It's a good point. Their boldness can be great for innovation, but it can also be their downfall if they're not careful. They might rush a decision, not think about the consequences, or clash with coworkers if they get too controlling.
So it's about finding that balance, right, between their strengths and those, let's say, intense tendencies.
Exactly. Self-awareness is huge for dragons in the workplace. They need people around them who can give honest feedback, offer a grounded perspective. A team with a good mix of signs, oxen for their methodical approach, rabbits for their attention to detail, that could be a huge benefit.
So it's not just about the dragon's journey. It's about building a team that supports their vision, helps them thrive.
That's it. But speaking of teams, we can't forget about all the other signs, right? How do dragons work with those who might not be a perfect match for their personality?
Right. We talked ideal matches, but what about signs that might want to steer clear of a dragon-led team?
Well, remember those potential clashes between dragons and dogs we mentioned? Now put that in a workplace where you need to collaborate. Could be interesting.
Ooh, recipe for tension. What's the root of that clash?
Dogs are loyal, traditional, cautious. Dragons are all about innovation, rapid change. Can lead to frustration on both sides if they aren't careful about communication.
Clash of styles, basically.
Exactly. And then you have tigers. You'd think strong signs, independent, they'd work well together, but it can become a power struggle. Both natural leaders, so unless they learn to share, to respect boundaries, conflict is inevitable.
Sounds like working with a dragon, boss, or coworker requires a bit of finesse no matter what your sign is. Any other signs that might butt heads with dragons on the job?
Oh, one more. Remember rabbits. Peace-loving rabbits. That desire for harmony, for consensus, clashes with the dragon's direct, fast-paced style.
So dragon needs speed, rabbit needs to consider all angles.
You got it. Now, this isn't to say these pairs can't work. With good communication, boundaries, respect, even the most different signs can find a way to thrive.
That's good to hear. Speaking of different approaches, we've explored so much about dragons' personality, relationships, careers, but let's circle back to their cultural significance. Dive back into that before we wrap things up.
Sounds good to me. Let's get back to the heart of the dragon's meaning in Chinese culture.
All right, we're back. Before we took a break, we were talking about the dragon's place in Chinese culture, right? How it's this mythical creature, but with real significance.
It's incredible how deeply rooted it is. Remember those Chinese New Year dances? They're not just for fun. They're about harnessing that dragon energy for a good year, a tradition that's been going for centuries.
It's amazing how those traditions keep going strong even today. But it's not just about the past, is it?
You got it. It's about keeping those values alive, moving forward with them. Even today, the dragon still inspires so much in China: art, literature, business, even personal beliefs.
It's like the dragon represents an ideal, right? Like a way to face the world with strength, resilience, a touch of magic, maybe?
Exactly. Which actually brings us to something we haven't talked about yet with the Chinese Zodiac. We've covered the year of the dragon, but did you know there's even more to your sign?
Wait, seriously, I thought we were already deep diving here. What else is there?
Your birth year. It's just the beginning. To really get it, you got to factor in your birth month, even the hour you were born. Each has its own animal sign.
Hold on, I might need to take notes. 3 different animals influencing who we are.
Exactly. It's like this. Your birth year, that's the base, the core, but your birth month adds a new layer.
A splash of color on that base.
Perfect way to put it.
Uh-huh.
So, say you're a dragon, right? But your birth month is the month of the snake. You're not a snake, but that snake energy, wisdom, intuition, that touch of mystery, it blends in.
So it's like a secret ingredient making each dragon unique.
Exactly. And then your birth hour, that has an animal sign too.
Okay, now this is where I get lost. What does that one represent?
Your birth hour animal. That's your inner self, the stuff that isn't always obvious, the stuff that really makes you you.
Like a secret identity, even in astrology. I love it.
Think of it as the driving force behind your deepest desires, your hidden talents.
I need an example. This is wild. Give me a dragon, birth month of snake. And let's say they're born in the hour of the horse. What does that combo look like?
Ooh, interesting mix. So you've got the dragon's charisma, that drive, right? Mixed with the snake's wisdom, intuition, and then at their core, the horse. Pure energy, passion, a need for freedom.
That's a lot of energy for one person.
Definitely a dynamic personality. But that's the beauty of it all, right? It shows that we're not just one thing, we're complex with all these layers shaping who we are.
Like everyone has their own astrological fingerprint. That's incredible.
Exactly. It's not about putting people in boxes. It's about seeing the ways these energies combine to make each person unique.
This has been amazing, from dragon basics to like the deeper secrets of the Chinese Zodiac. And it's clear this isn't just fortune telling. It's about understanding ourselves and each other better.
Absolutely. It's ancient wisdom, but it's still so relevant. A tool for self-discovery, for growth, for connecting with the people around us.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And on that note, we've reached the end of our dragon deep dive. Hopefully you're feeling inspired, maybe a little more curious about this whole world.
And remember, fire-breathing dragon or graceful snake, understanding those energies within us. That's how we create a richer, more meaningful life. Today we're really diving deep into what it really means to be a snake in the Chinese Zodiac. You know, buckle up, because we're going to uncover how those born in the year of the snake navigate the world. We'll be looking at their strengths, weaknesses, how they connect with others, all that good stuff.
The snake is such a fascinating sign. People often misunderstand them, but they have such hidden depths, just like you.
Right. And speaking of hidden depths, I was reading through the research, and this one bit really caught my eye. Did you know that while the snake is like generally a yin sign linked to fire, other elements can totally influence a snake's traits? It's wild. It's like each snake year has, its own unique flavor.
Exactly. No two snakes are exactly alike. But generally speaking, people born in the year of the snake, regardless of their element, are often seen as intelligent, graceful, and incredibly capable, but with this really intriguing air of mystery about them. It's not just a surface level thing either. It really influences how they approach life.
So it's not like we can just put all snakes into one box, right?
Absolutely not. For instance, think about the water snake. They were born in 1953, and they really embody the adaptable nature of water. It enhances their intuition, making them super empathetic. Like they can really connect with people on a deep level. Now picture the fire snake. Born in 1977, they just radiate this dynamism, this passion. Fire snakes naturally draw people in with their charisma and leadership qualities.
Wow, insightful water snake, captivating fire snake. It's amazing how those elements can add so much depth. So we've got water, we've got fire. What about the other elements?
Well, if you were born in 1965, you'd be an earth snake. The research really highlights their practicality and their grounded nature. They're the ones who, when faced with a challenge, approach it methodically, level-headed. Then, fast forward to 2001, that's when you get your metal snakes. Ambitious and determined, they set really high standards, and they are not afraid to put in the work. And we can't forget the wood snakes, born in 89, right? They're the creatives, the idealists, the ones who really, truly want to leave the world a better place.
It's just amazing to me how one sign can manifest in so many different ways. But even with all those variations, would you say there's still some common threads that run through all the snake years?
Oh, for sure. Despite their differences, snakes, at their core, are known for their sharp minds, their strategic thinking, and of course, that inherent air of mystery. They're always observing, always taking in information and processing it in a way that makes them seem wise beyond their years.
It's like they have this inner wisdom, But speaking of guidance, the research we've been looking at, it doesn't shy away from potential downsides either. And frankly, that's where things get really interesting for me.
I agree. I think recognizing both the strengths and the challenges is crucial to understanding any sign. It's all about balance.
Exactly. For instance, the research points out this really interesting paradox. Snakes are known for being intelligent, but they can also be prone to overthinking. How did that play out in the life of someone with, strong snake energy?
Well, you might find yourself overthinking your interactions with others, like replaying conversations in your head, wondering if you said the right thing. Or maybe you analyze decisions from every possible angle, which can lead to, analysis paralysis.
Yeah, it can be so easy to get stuck in your head, right?
Yeah.
And it's not just about decisions either. This whole overthinking thing, it can really spill into relationships too.
Absolutely. Snakes can really overanalyze their interactions with others, which can lead to all sorts of, unnecessary worry or doubt. And this actually ties into another fascinating paradox that the research highlights. Snakes can be both charismatic and secretive, so they might be able to draw people in with their charm, but deep down they kind of hold back certain parts of themselves.
It's interesting because on the surface, it seems almost contradictory, right? Like, you can captivate a room, but you're also really guarded. How does it even work?
I think it all boils down to their need for privacy and control. Snakes are really intentional about what they choose to reveal about themselves. So yeah, they might be the life of the party, but they've carefully chosen which parts of themselves they're sharing. And to a certain extent, that's healthy. We all need boundaries, right? The challenge for snakes is finding that balance between, maintaining their privacy, but also letting people in close enough to form those really intimate connections.
It's like they have this beautifully woven tapestry that represents their inner world, but they're just not quite ready to fully unveil it.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that's why I think understanding those nuances is so important. It's about appreciating the complexity that makes the snake sign so fascinating.
Yeah, and it's striking to me how many of these snake traits, both the strength and the challenges, they resonate even if you weren't born in the year of the snake.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've all wrestled with overthinking at some point or another, right?
Yeah.
We're trying to find that sweet spot between privacy and vulnerability in our relationships.
Oh, 100%. I think what we're exploring here, it transcends a single zodiac sign. These are pretty universally relatable themes. I think they really touch on the human experience.
Absolutely. And speaking of those, intriguing snake traits and how they play out in relationships, the research actually has some really fascinating insights into compatibility, especially when it comes to roosters and oxen. They're repeatedly highlighted as really strong matches for snakes. So what's the deal with those pairings? Why are they considered such a good fit?
Well, let's start with roosters. The research suggests that it's kind of like a meeting of the minds, but with a really nice balance of differences, too. Both signs really value loyalty, which creates this really strong foundation for any relationship. And while roosters are known for being very direct, they're also often captivated by the snake's depth and intrigue. It creates this push and pull dynamic where the rooster's, straightforward nature actually encourages the snake to communicate more openly, which ultimately leads to a stronger bond.
So it's like their energies really complement each other, right? The rooster kind of encourages that open communication,
right,
while the snake brings that more thoughtful, strategic perspective. What about the ox? That seems like a very different kind of dynamic.
You're right. It is a different flavor of compatibility.
Yeah.
But it can be equally as powerful. The research really emphasizes the ox's grounding influence on the snake. Oxen are known for their stability, their reliability, their practicality, all of which can be incredibly calming for the snake, who, as we've discussed, can be prone to, overthinking or getting lost in their own thoughts.
So the ox kind of provides that sense of security, that stability that maybe the snake finds really reassuring.
Exactly. And when it comes to shared goals, whether it's in work or their personal lives, this combination is practically unstoppable. Both the ox and the snake are incredibly hardworking, committed, driven to succeed, and they really complement each other's work styles too. The ox is steady, persistent, while the snake is resourceful, strategic. It's like they create this really powerful synergy.
It's like they just instinctively understand each other's strengths and how to leverage them effectively. I'm sensing a theme here. It's not so much about finding someone exactly like you, but rather someone who really complements your energy and helps you, navigate those trickier aspects of your personality.
That's such a great point. It's about embracing those differences, recognizing how they can actually lead to growth and balance in a relationship.
Which leads us perfectly to our next topic. The research also delves into some of the challenges that those born in the year of the snake might face. And one that really stood out to me, and I'm curious to hear if this resonates with you at all, is this idea of balancing the snake's natural perfectionism with the need to adapt to, life's curveballs. Because that's something we can all relate to, all right?
Yeah.
Regardless of our zodiac sign.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's a universal struggle trying to reconcile how we want things to be with the reality that life is often unpredictable and messy and rarely goes according to plan.
Right. And for snakes, who are often gifted planners, strategists, how do they learn to embrace that flexibility when their instinct is to have it all mapped out?
I think it all starts with self-awareness. The research really emphasizes this. Snakes, you are wired to strive for excellence, and that's an amazing strength. But it's also important to recognize when those high standards become a source of pressure or self-criticism. It's about finding that sweet spot between pushing yourself to be your best and also accepting that sometimes good enough really is more than enough.
It's definitely easier said than done, though, right? Especially for our snake listeners who are, naturally gifted at planning and strategizing. How do you even begin to embrace that flexibility when you're wired to have everything mapped out?
I think that's where their innate resourcefulness comes into play. Snakes are actually incredibly adaptable when they need to be. Think about how a snake moves. It's all about navigating obstacles, finding creative solutions. So channel that energy into embracing change rather than, resisting it. Instead of viewing unexpected situations as failures, try to see them as opportunities to learn and grow.
It's like reframing those uh-oh moments into here we go again adventures.
Exactly. That shift in perspective can be so empowering.
And it really speaks to the core of what we've been talking about today, that snakes are complex beings with these incredible strengths, but also some inherent challenges.
Yeah.
And it's about recognizing those challenges, owning them, and ultimately, using them to navigate life in a way that feels authentic and fulfilling.
I couldn't agree more. Self-awareness is an ongoing journey, It's about constantly checking in with yourself, understanding your needs, and learning how to best leverage your strengths while also, navigating those areas where you might stumble a bit.
It really is. It's all about, self-discovery.
Yeah.
What would you say is, one key takeaway for those who, really want to delve deeper into their own snake energy?
Here's something to think about. The research suggests that embracing, both your inner wisdom, A and D, those, those moments of self-doubt, that can actually be incredibly empowering. How can that awareness that you have those two sides help you create stronger, more authentic connections in your life?
Wow, it's really making me think. So it's by acknowledging both sides, the wise, intuitive part and the part that overthinks or questions, that's actually how we can connect more genuinely with others.
Exactly. When we can recognize and accept all parts of ourselves, even the messy bits, that's how we can really show up authentically in our relationships. And I think that's something we can all aspire to, regardless of our sign.
Absolutely.
Today, we're going to be getting into the year of the horse in the Chinese zodiac.
Lots to unpack there. They're fascinating, aren't they? How those horse traits, those characteristics, they're not just about, what year someone was born, but they're so deeply connected to Chinese history and culture.
It's true. So to kind of start us off, kind of paint this really vibrant picture of horses as being just really energetic and enthusiastic, life of the party, always ready for an adventure, that kind of thing. But, and I love this about horses too, it's not all fun and games.
Right.
They're also described as incredibly hardworking and ambitious, always kind of striving for more. One phrase that really, really stood out to me in the text was running like a horse, which I thought that was just so perfect because it really, gets at that drive and that boundless energy that horses have.
It does. And I think that energy, right, it's very directly tied to the horse's symbolism in Chinese culture. We're talking about strength and speed, intelligence, like a potent blend, really, of power and a kind of free spirit.
Okay, so we think about someone then who was born in the year of the horse. What does this actually translate to in their lives? How does this actually manifest?
It suggests that, they often naturally gravitate towards leadership positions, because their energy, it's infectious, right? It inspires others to action. They also very often excel in really creative fields, anything where innovation and thinking outside the box are celebrated. We're talking entrepreneurs, artists, people who really thrive in those really dynamic environments.
Okay, so not exactly the 9-to-5 office type.
Yeah, routine is not really their thing.
So speaking of dynamic environments, let's gallop into the world of relationships.
Sure.
Because we've got this compatibility chart, which honestly, it's like a cosmic cheat sheet for who vibes best with our horse friends.
Right. And I think it's important to say, this isn't about setting anything in stone or saying that certain relationships are doomed from the start, but more about understanding those natural dynamics that exist between the signs.
Yeah, absolutely. It's more about gaining some insights, not necessarily drawing any conclusions.
Right.
So who has caught the horse's eye, let's say, when it comes to the realm of romance?
Romance. So
it looks like tigers, dogs, and sheep are kind of leading the pack here.
Interesting.
So tigers, they bring that shared thirst for adventure.
Yeah, that fiery passion that horses really crave. Yeah.
And then there's the dog, which are known for their loyalty and really unwavering support, which I imagine is something that really resonates with that horse's, I don't know, kind of deeper need for security.
It's true. It's that grounding influence that the horse sometimes, can benefit from.
And sheep, right, because their gentleness, their understanding, it just seems like that it would just perfectly complement the horse's, that sometimes unbridled energy.
It's true. It's about balance. Like a dog's grounding influence, as we were saying, it can do wonders for a horse's, their impulsiveness at times. It can help them create more harmony and balance in their life.
That's super interesting. Now, we can't talk about compatibility without talking about those pairings that require a little bit more, let's say, finesse.
Yeah, those, quote, worst match pairings, right?
Right, exactly. And again, this doesn't necessarily, this doesn't mean disaster, but it does highlight maybe some areas where, understanding and compromise are extra important.
For sure.
And our chart here, it's calling out the rat, ox, and rooster as potentially bumpy rides for the horse.
Okay, so let's break those down. The rat, right? So their cautious nature might clash with the horse's spontaneity, that need for freedom, as we were talking about.
It makes sense.
The ox, well, they love structure and tradition, right?
Yeah.
And that might feel stifling to a horse.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you've got the rooster, which, their tendency to be a little bit critical, even if it comes from a good place, it can sometimes dampen the horses, their natural enthusiasm.
Yeah, like a cosmic clash of personality.
Exactly.
But this isn't just about romantic relationships, is it? This extends to, like, the workplace as well?
Oh, absolutely. And interestingly enough, dogs, they make another appearance as, like, ideal colleagues for horses.
Oh.
Their reliability, their support, it creates a space, really, where horses can truly thrive in a professional environment.
It's like having a super organized work bestie who, like, always has your back.
Exactly.
What about horses and tigers in the workplace? That seems, from the chart, like that would be like a real power duo.
It can be. It can be.
Yeah.
Because they're both so ambitious, right?
Yeah.
They're driven. They push each other to, like, reach new heights. They have that shared enthusiasm, which can lead to some pretty amazing innovation and success.
Cool. What about rabbits?
Rabbits are great, too. They're creative. They have that collaborative spirit. They make fantastic brainstorming partners for the horse.
Okay, but just like with the romantic relationships, I imagine there are certain pairings in the workplace that, might need a little extra attention.
Yeah, for sure.
To really reach their full potential.
For sure. So, for instance, the horse is very go-with-the-flow style. It might clash with a rat's love of meticulous planning. And you definitely don't want to, try to put a horse in a really rigid, overly structured environment.
There's disaster waiting to happen.
Exactly. You're going to stifle their creativity, their zest for the work. And I think just like we saw with the romantic pairings, that roosters, those critical tendencies can sometimes inadvertently, clip the horse's wings a little bit in a professional setting as well.
So, okay, we've talked about the horse's, really vibrant personality, their cosmically aligned companions, and also those relationships that that might just require a bit more navigation. But we have to remember every coin has two sides, right?
Always.
So understanding the strengths and weaknesses of the horse, like, I imagine that's really key to unlocking their full potential.
Absolutely. And again, it's not about labeling or judging, right? It's about gaining that deeper understanding of the why behind the what.
So when it comes to, our sources, some of the horse's strengths that are highlighted are things like their independent spirit and really their unwavering work ethic.
Mm-hmm.
Like, these are individuals who are not afraid to chase after what they want and really put in the effort to make things happen.
Yeah.
But that very independence, that can sometimes make long-term commitment, whether it's in, their personal life or even in their career. That can be a bit of a hurdle sometimes.
Yeah, because they have that innate desire for freedom.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So it might lead to some challenges in really sticking with routines or relationships that feel too restrictive. It's like that classic push and pull between freedom and commitment.
It's like they yearn for the open range, even when they've found a comfortable stable.
What a perfect analogy.
But, we can't shy away from the elephant in the room, or should we say the impulsiveness in the stable?
Ooh, I like that.
Because while their spontaneity is great, it leads to, like, all these amazing adventures, it is important that horses kind of try to balance that out with a little bit more like careful consideration, especially when it comes to making big decisions.
Absolutely. Taking a moment to pause, reflect, it can prevent a lot of those wish I had thought that through moments.
Yeah, absolutely. But their creativity, their ability to think outside the box, I mean, that's pure magic.
Imagine the possibilities.
Yeah.
These are our innovators. These are the ones who challenge the way that everyone else is thinking about something and really bring new perspectives.
But as with anything, there's always kind of, the shadow side, right?
Right.
And with creativity, at least according to our research here, that can manifest as a tendency to be a little inconsistent.
Yeah, it's the classic double-edged sword, right?
Right.
They might be amazing at coming up with new ideas, but channeling that energy into sustained effort over a long period of time, well, that's where the challenge lies sometimes.
So the question is then, how can horses, how can they harness their really incredible strengths while also being aware of, and I guess navigating those weaknesses? Like, how do you take all of that raw talent and kind of refine it?
That is the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
And believe it or not, I think, well, the wisdom of the Chinese Zodiac, it offers some clues.
Okay.
So remember how we were talking earlier about the horse's really like deep connection to energy and drive?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the Chinese Zodiac, each sign is also associated with one of 5 elements: wood, fire, earth, metal, and water.
Oh, yeah, right. So it's like these elements, they add another like layer of depth and complexity really to their personality.
Exactly. And this is where we get into this really fascinating realm of the 5 types of horses. So it's like, imagine this, right? It's not just about being a horse. It's about what kind of horse you are.
Okay.
Because each element, the wood, the fire, the earth, the metal, the water, it kind of colors their personality in a really unique way. It's like each element brings its own energy to the stable, so to speak.
Okay, so you're saying there are like 5 different like versions of the horse.
Exactly.
Each with their own like strengths and weaknesses.
Exactly. So for example, you've got like the wood horse.
Okay.
They're known for being super adaptable, very creative.
Okay.
They thrive in environments where they can like constantly learn and explore new things. Like think of them as the free spirits of the horse world.
So not exactly the type to have like a desk job then.
Probably not, no. They need their freedom.
Okay.
Right? They crave flexibility and a lot of mental stimulation. Now, contrast that with, like, the earth horse.
Okay.
They're much more grounded and practical. Like, they're the planners, the reliable ones of the bunch.
So they're the ones who, like, keep everyone else grounded while the wood horse is off, like, chasing butterflies.
You got it. They bring that sense of stability and organization to the horse's naturally, like, energetic nature. And then, of course, on the opposite end of the spectrum, you got the fire horse.
Oh, fire horse. Okay. Yeah, I mean, just those 2 words, they just scream passionate and intense.
Right. That's exactly what they're like. Probably the most fiery and energetic of all the horse types. Super charismatic, very ambitious, always ready to take charge.
The life of the party for sure.
For sure.
What about metal horses and water horses? Where do they fit in?
Yeah. So the metal horse, they're known for being really strong-willed, very determined, incredibly focused, driven, always striving to achieve their goals.
They have that running like a horse energy we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
And then lastly, you've got the water horse, which is perhaps the most intuitive and adaptable of all the horse types.
Yeah.
They're very in tune with their emotions, and they just have this like natural ability to connect with others on a really deep level.
Wow. It's amazing to me how even within like one sign there can be like so much diversity.
It's true.
But, we keep talking about all these personality traits and compatibilities and stuff, but like, how does someone actually use this knowledge? How does this benefit them in their everyday life? It can't just be about like who to date or who to work with, right?
Right. And it's not. It's so much more than that. I mean, really, the Chinese Zodiac, it's a tool for self-discovery and understanding.
Okay.
So for someone born in the year of the horse, like, if they can figure out what their elemental type is, that can be so insightful for them.
So less about, like, fortune-telling and more about just, like, self-awareness.
Exactly. So, for instance, right, a fire horse, they might realize that they're most fulfilled when they can channel all that boundless energy that they have into, like, a leadership role or some kind of creative outlet.
Right.
Or a water horse might come to understand that, their intuition, that's like their superpower.
Right.
And they can really use that in their relationships, in their decision making.
So it's like having like a user manual for your personality.
Exactly. And even for people who aren't horses.
Yeah.
Like, even if you're not a horse, just understanding these dynamics can be so helpful, especially when it comes to, like, navigating relationships with the horses in your life.
That's a really good point.
Right. So, for example, imagine being able to understand why your horse friend is always, like, needing their freedom.
Yeah.
Or like, how to best motivate that horse colleague to, to really bring their A game.
Yeah, it's like you have this like secret decoder ring for understanding the people around you.
I love that.
And we always hear, right, communication is key.
Right.
But it's like this is giving you the entire language.
It's going beyond just the surface level.
Right.
And really trying to understand the motivations, the strengths, the challenges of each sign. And when you have that understanding, I mean, that can lead to more fulfilling relationships. It can make collaborations go more smoothly.
Yeah.
And just overall, it just helps you to have a more harmonious way of interacting with the world around you.
So what you're saying is whether you are a galloping horse or a steadfast ox, like the Chinese Zodiac offers this like really fascinating lens through which to kind of view ourselves and the people around us.
Good design.
And speaking of other signs, remember how earlier we were talking about those, those compatible pairings and the, let's just say, less compatible pairings.
Right.
It's really interesting to think about how those dynamics, they actually play out in different areas of life, whether we're talking about romantic relationships, work, family, friendships.
Yeah, for sure. Because it's almost like the Zodiac is giving us a little sneak peek into like the natural rhythms of those relationships.
It's true. It really makes you think about like, those relationships, the ones that just seem to work, versus the ones that always feel like a bit of a puzzle or something.
It does.
Yeah.
And, knowing a bit about the Chinese Zodiac can almost be like you said, having a cheat sheet to help you understand those dynamics a little bit better. So, for example, right, let's say you're a lore and you're constantly butting heads with a Rooster coworker.
Okay.
It might be helpful to remember that those two signs, they naturally clash a little bit.
Yeah, so it kind of takes the pressure off, right? It's like,
Right.
okay, maybe it's not personal.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just like cosmic energies at play or something.
Exactly. But I think this begs the question, what if you don't even know where you fit into all of this?
Right.
What if you don't even know your own sign?
That's a great point because it's like we've been exploring this map, but we haven't actually like pinpointed where you are on the map.
Exactly.
But don't worry, listeners, we're not going to leave you hanging.
Never.
Finding out your Chinese zodiac sign it's actually super easy.
It is.
All you have to do is just do a quick search online for Chinese zodiac calculator.
Easy peasy.
Enter your birth year, and voila, you've got your sign, and then you've got this whole world of self-discovery to kind of dive into.
And remember, even if you're not a horse soul, I think just understanding the characteristics of this sign and really all the signs, it can be really illuminating.
It's true. Think about it this way. Like, do you have a friend who, they embody that horse energy, always the life of the party, like full of ideas, constantly on the move.
Right.
Or maybe you have a coworker who always impresses you with, how creative they are, how driven they are.
Mm-hmm.
This deep dive, it might give you a whole new perspective on why they do the things they do, on what motivates them.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe it will inspire you to learn a little bit more about your own sign and how that interacts with this fascinating world of the Chinese Zodiac.
Yeah. Because it really is a journey of self-discovery, and it can really deepen your understanding, not just of yourself, but of the people around you, too. Well, as much as we would love to, gallop through the entire Chinese zodiac with you right now,
Right.
we've kind of reached the finish line for today's deep dive.
We have.
But we wouldn't want to let you go without leaving you with one final thought.
Always have to leave them with something to ponder.
Right, exactly. What's a deep dive without a little something to mull over?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So as you go about your day today, we invite you to consider this. How might understanding the strengths and weaknesses, not just of the horse, but of any sign, really, how might that help you to navigate the relationships in your own life?
Ooh, good one.
Right. So, for instance, maybe it helps you to approach a certain conversation with more empathy, or maybe it helps you to better appreciate why someone needs their freedom.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just about recognizing, that really unique dance that happens between different personalities.
A really good question. Something to think about for sure.
Lots to ponder.
The year of the goat. We're going way beyond the surface today.
Absolutely. We're really going to unpack the goat personality.
Maybe we should start with, actually figuring out what a goat personality is like. One thing that jumped out at me was all this stuff about goats and art. But it's not just like, oh, goats are good at painting or something.
No, it goes deeper than that. It's more like this inherent sensitivity. It's like goats have this unique ability to take their emotions, their perceptions, all that, and turn it into some kind of creative expression.
So it's more about having that artistic soul than actually being like a master sculptor.
Exactly. For some goats, that might mean music is their outlet.
Right.
But then for others, it might be writing or maybe even just the way they approach a problem, how they connect with other people. It can all be very artistic in a way.
Which actually makes sense when you remember how crazy empathetic goats are. They're those friends who just get you, always seem to know the right thing to say.
Their empathy is definitely a core trait. It's almost like they can tap into the emotions of everyone around them, And I think that deep well of empathy, it fuels both their artistic side and the thing you mentioned about being peacemakers.
Oh, that's right. Goats are all about harmony, right? Like always trying to make sure things are balanced, no drama.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Although that desire for harmony, as much as it comes from a good place, it can be a double-edged sword.
Because sometimes you need a little conflict to really clear the air and understand each other better. Like that saying, the truth will set you free, even if it's a little tough to hear at first.
That's such a key point. It's
Yeah.
all about balance. I think goats, they really highlight that. They teach us how important kindness is, how crucial empathy and understanding are when you're dealing with people.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, they also remind us that it's okay to stand up for yourself, to have those tough conversations when you need to.
Okay, so we've got this image now. Goats creative, empathetic, and like professional peacekeepers. But let's get to the fun stuff, the relationships. I am dying to know about these pairings, especially the unexpected ones.
Oh, I think you'd be surprised. Get ready for this one. Love between a goat and a horse.
That's one I did not see coming. Those two seem like total opposites at first glance. You've got the horse, all this energy, always on the move, and then the goat who's way more chill, all about peace.
Exactly. And yet, that seeming contradiction is usually what makes them click. Remember how we were talking about balance being key? The horse's energy, it's like this exciting force, but the goat's presence, that's what grounds them.
So the horse brings the spice, and the goat keeps things from going completely off the rails.
And it's not just in romantic relationships either. Think about this pairing at work.
Oh, interesting. So this isn't just about who you should date. It's like a whole new way to understand all your relationships, even work stuff. Tell me more about the goat and horse dynamic at work.
Okay, so picture this. You're working on a project, right? The horse, they're probably the ones bouncing ideas off the walls, super enthusiastic, pushing everyone to think bigger.
Makes sense.
But then the goat, with their eye for detail and their knack for bringing calm to chaos, they're the ones who can take those wild ideas and mold them into something amazing.
That's such a good combo. Speaking of good combos, goats and pigs as being great together, right?
Absolutely. While the horse might bring excitement, pigs offer something else that goats crave: security, unwavering loyalty.
Which, let's be real, is something a lot of goats are looking for in a partner.
For sure. Goats really thrive when they feel safe, understood, cared for, all of that. And pigs are so good at creating that kind of nurturing space where a goat can really blossom.
Okay, I'm already seeing how this whole zodiac thing can be useful, even if you don't, plan your entire life around it. It's like a different lens to view your relationships through. But before we go any further down the rabbit hole of amazing goat pairings, we've got to talk about the flip side, right?
Oh, you mean the challenges?
Yeah, because it can't all be smooth sailing, can it? So which challenging pairing should we brace ourselves for first?
Well, the one that tends to trip people up is goat and ox.
Ooh, yeah, I can already see where this is going. We talked about how much goats love keeping the peace, how sometimes they'd rather avoid conflict than rock the boat.
Right.
And oxen, well, they have a bit of a reputation for being,
headstrong.
that's the word, and maybe a little set in their ways.
For sure. Oxen, they're all about practicality, a strong work ethic, pure determination.
Mm-hmm.
But those great qualities, they can also make an ox seem stubborn or like they're not willing to budge, especially when you pair them with someone like a goat who just wants everyone to get along.
It's not that the ox is trying to be difficult. It's more like their whole approach to life, to problem solving, is just fundamentally different from a goat's, where the goat might try to find a compromise, smooth things over. The ox might just put their foot down and refuse to budge.
Exactly. And that clash of styles, it can lead to friction, especially when it comes to communication.
Especially since goats are so sensitive, right? They might take the ox's bluntness way more personally, even if it wasn't intended that way.
100%. What the ox might see is just being direct, honest even. The goat might hear as harsh criticism. And this is where that whole thing about goats internalizing their feelings can really backfire.
Because if they're not careful, they end up bottling everything up.
Exactly.
And eventually, it's just a recipe for resentment and misunderstandings.
You got it. And again, this dynamic isn't limited to romantic relationships. It can play out in friendships, families, even at work.
Okay, so for those who are in a goat-ox relationship, or maybe they are the ox in the pairing, what's the secret? How do you make it work?
Honestly, it goes back to communication, which is key in any relationship. But with this pairing in particular, it's about acknowledging those differences in communication styles and adapting,
So, like, the ox might need to think a little more about how they're coming across, choose their words more carefully, soften their tone a bit.
Right. It's about finding that balance between being honest and being sensitive, even when you disagree. And for the goat, it's about finding their voice, feeling comfortable expressing their needs, and setting boundaries, but doing it in a way that feels true to them.
So instead of avoiding conflict entirely, the goat could try saying something like, hey, I get where you're coming from, but I see things a little differently. Can we talk about this?
Exactly. It's all about open communication where everyone feels heard and respected. And, these communication patterns we're talking about, they actually connect back to some of the goat's core strengths and weaknesses, which we haven't even gotten to yet.
Oh, you're right. We got so caught up in these relationship dynamics that we almost forgot to unpack the goat's internal world.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that make goats so great, and where do they tend to stumble?
Well, we've touched on a few of their strengths already. They're creative, empathetic, incredibly loving, and loyal people. That's what makes them such amazing partners, friends, family members.
And let's not forget about their work ethic. Goats are super dedicated, always willing to go the extra mile, especially if they really connect with what they're doing.
Totally. They're definitely the people you want on your team, no matter what the project is.
But like all of us, goats have their weak points, right? What are some of the challenges they might face?
Well, as we've seen with those tougher pairings, their sensitivity, which is a beautiful thing, can also be a bit of an Achilles heel.
Because if they're not careful, they can end up taking on everyone else's emotional baggage as their own.
Right. And that can make them prone to overthinking, anxiety, and, like we said, avoiding conflict, even when it might be better to speak up.
Which is a shame because, honestly, goats are way stronger than they think they are.
100%. And that actually reminds me of something important that I feel like often gets overlooked when people talk about the year of the goat. Beneath that gentleness lies a surprising resilience.
Oh, I love that. It's so true. Goats have this inner strength that helps them get through tough times, and they do it with grace,
Exactly. They might not be the loudest voices in the room, but their quiet strength and their compassion, it really can change the world around them.
The goat is supposed to embody yin energy, right? This gentle, receptive force, often linked with femininity, intuition, creativity, all of that.
Beautiful observation.
And it makes me think, in a world that often seems to value assertiveness and competition, this more traditionally masculine energy, how can we all benefit from tapping into our own yin side a little more? Regardless of our sign.
That's such a powerful question. And honestly, I think it gets to the heart of what we've been talking about. It's about finding balance within ourselves.
Exactly. It's not about picking one or the other. It's about embracing both yin and yang, the masculine and feminine, being assertive when you need to be, but also knowing when to step back and listen. True strength comes from finding that harmony within ourselves.
Beautifully said. And I think that's the beauty of the Chinese Zodiac. It gives us this framework for understanding these universal parts of ourselves,
Absolutely. It's like you said, these zodiac archetypes, they're in all of us, right?
Absolutely. And speaking of archetypes, let's get back to those interesting goat pairings. We were about to talk about the goat and the monkey. And I think this one might surprise some people.
Yeah, that one definitely caught my eye too. On the one hand, you've got the monkey, right? Super playful, energetic, always the life of the party, it seems like.
Right.
And then you've got the goat, much more introspective, always trying to keep things calm and harmonious. Where's the common ground?
That's the thing about these seemingly opposite pairings. They actually highlight that whole idea of balance. Just like the horse's energy can be grounding for the goat, the monkey's zest for life It can actually draw the goat out of their shell a little.
I see what you mean. It's like the monkey encourages that playful side of the goat to come out.
Exactly.
Maybe helps them loosen up, try new things, be a little more spontaneous.
Precisely. The monkey might be the one who convinces the goat to finally try that new restaurant, or go on that adventure they've been putting off.
And I bet the goat, in their own way, helps the monkey chill out a little when they need to.
Totally. The goat can offer that safe, stable space for the monkey to come back to when things get a little too hectic. So you see, it's this really cool exchange of energy where both signs kind of push each other to grow.
It reminds me of that saying, life begins at the edge of your comfort zone. I can totally see that playing out in this kind of pairing.
It's about embracing those differences and seeing them as opportunities.
We can't just talk about the feel-good pairings, right?
It's not all about finding your perfect zodiac match.
Exactly. So which pairing should we brace ourselves for?
Well, the one that often throws people off is the goat and the dog. Now, you wouldn't think it at first glance.
Yeah, because dogs are supposed to be loyal, protective.
Exactly.
Which honestly sounds like a pretty good match for a goat, at least on paper.
You'd think so, right? And those qualities are definitely a big part of what initially attracts a goat to a dog. That need for security, that emotional stability, dogs can offer that in spades. But
there's always a but, isn't there?
Right. Remember how we talked about goats being sensitive? Well, the dog's honesty, as great as it is, can sometimes be a little too much for a goat to handle.
It's like that saying, honesty without tact is just cruelty, or something like that.
Exactly. What the dog might see as simply telling the truth, the goat might experience as a personal attack.
So again, it comes back to those different communication styles.
100%.
But I feel like with the dog and goat, it goes a little deeper than that. It's not just about softening the delivery. It's about understanding where the other person is coming from.
You hit the nail on the head. Because for the dog, that need to be honest, it usually comes from a really good place. It's about loyalty, about protecting the people they love. So they might not even realize they're being hurtful. They think they're just being real.
Okay, so how do you bridge that gap? How do a goat and a dog make it work when their communication styles are so fundamentally different?
Well, like you said, it starts with understanding. Maybe the dog needs to be a bit more mindful of how they're phrasing things, especially with a goat. Think about how their words might be perceived.
And maybe pick their battles.
Exactly. Not every little thing needs to be a critique. And for the goat, it might be about trying to see the good intentions behind the dog's words, even when it's hard.
And maybe, just like with the ox, having that conversation early on about communication styles. Saying something like, I really value your honesty, I do, but sometimes I need you to say it a little gentler.
Exactly. Create that space where both people feel safe to talk about these things. And all this talk about communication, it actually ties back to those core strengths and weaknesses we were going to discuss about the goat personality.
Oh, you're right. We got so sidetracked by the relationship stuff, which is super interesting. But we've got to dive into the goat's inner world a little bit. So tell me, what are some of the things that make goats so unique, and where do they tend to struggle?
Well, we've already talked about some of their best qualities. They're incredibly creative, deeply empathetic, and they have so much love to give. I mean, that's what makes them such amazing friends, partners, family members.
And they're hard workers.
Oh, yeah.
Don't forget about that. They're dedicated. They get stuff done, especially if they're passionate about the project.
Having a goat on your team is never a bad thing. But we've got to be real, right? Every sign has its downsides, its areas where they might struggle a bit.
So for goats, what are some of those potential pitfalls? What should they watch out for?
Well, like we've seen with some of those tougher relationship pairings, that sensitivity, which can be such a strength, it can also be a real vulnerability for them. They feel things so deeply, and sometimes they take on other people's emotions as if they were their own.
And all that emotional overload can lead to overthinking, anxiety, and like we were saying before, avoiding conflict even when it might be better to address the issue head on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's a shame because honestly, goats are so much stronger than they give themselves credit for. They have this incredible inner strength that often gets overlooked.
Oh, totally. It's like that saying, still waters run deep. They might not always show it, but goats can get through some really tough stuff.
Right. It's not always obvious on the surface,
Yeah.
but they find a way, and they do it with this sense of grace that I really admire.
It's like that quote, the obstacle is the way. But I feel like we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves. We still need to loop back to one more thing about those goats' strengths and weaknesses. We talked about their empathy, their resilience, but there was something else, wasn't there? Something about how goats approach their goals, their dreams.
Oh, you mean that whole thing about idealism versus practicality?
Yeah, that's it. Because goats are such dreamers, right? They have these amazing visions, but sometimes
Sometimes it's hard for them to reconcile those dreams with the reality of, well, reality.
Exactly. And I can see how that could be a real struggle for a goat. On the one hand, they have this incredible faith in their dreams, this belief that anything is possible. But then they also have this tendency to overthink things, to get bogged down by the details, which can really sabotage their progress.
It's that classic overthinker's dilemma.
Yeah.
They're so busy analyzing every possible outcome, mapping out every potential obstacle, that they sometimes talk themselves out of even taking the first step.
So how does a goat overcome that? How do they learn to balance that idealism with a little more, I don't know, practicality?
Well, it goes back to what we were talking about before, balance. They need to find that sweet spot between dreaming big and taking action. It's about breaking down those goals into smaller, more manageable steps so they don't feel so overwhelming.
It's like building a bridge to your dreams, one stone at a time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, it can also be helpful for goats to surround themselves with people who can ground them a little.
Oh, like those ox and dog friends.
Exactly. Those more practical, down-to-earth influences can be so valuable for a goat. Not to rain on their parade or anything. It's more about helping them stay grounded as they reach for the stars.
It's all about finding those people who complement your strengths and help you navigate your weaknesses, right? Which I've got to say is a perfect note to end on.
I agree. Today we're diving into the world of the Chinese Zodiac's monkeys.
You know what's funny? What always gets me is how with the Chinese Zodiac, it goes way beyond just like your birth year. This isn't some generalized sun sign horoscope, is it?
Not even close. We're talking about energy, elements, way more nuance. Because if it was just those quick online descriptions, wouldn't every monkey be the same?
Exactly. And we know that's not true. The animal sign is just the start, right? Then you factor in the 12-year cycle, the influence of the 5 elements, wood, fire, all of that, and suddenly it's a much bigger picture.
So someone born in, say, 2004, a wood monkey year, could be totally different from someone born in 2016, a fire monkey.
Yeah, absolutely. They share that core monkey energy, but the element adds this whole other layer. Like a wood monkey, someone born in 2004, often drawn to creativity. They've got this sense of justice. It's almost like the wood element, all about growth, right?
Yeah.
It fuels this need for fairness, wanting to make the world better.
So it's not just being creative, it's driven by something deeper. Now, those 2016 babies, the fire monkeys, are they just running around, I don't know, metaphorically lighting things up?
Well, there's definitely a fiery energy there. Adventurous, maybe a tad impulsive, but that enthusiasm, infectious, often great leaders, though they might need to keep that headstrong side in check sometimes.
Okay, I'm getting a sense of what makes monkeys tick, but like any good personality profile, we've got to look at both sides, right?
Yeah.
The good, the maybe not so good.
And it's important to remember every sign has both. It's about balance, yeah.
Absolutely. So let's dish on those monkey strengths. What makes them so darn magnetic?
Well, first off, crazy intelligent, quick-witted. They just think on their feet, adapt to new situations, which makes them fantastic problem solvers.
That makes sense. It's probably why you find so many monkeys excelling in those fast-paced fields like tech or entrepreneurs.
Totally.
Yeah.
They need that challenge, using their creativity. But beyond that, they've got this playful, almost childlike energy. It's charming, charismatic, it draws people to them.
So life of the party, always cracking jokes, coming up with crazy ideas.
That's one way to put it. But remember what I said about the flip side. That playfulness, sometimes it tips into mischief. And that need for stimulation can make them a little, shall we say, inconsistent.
So that monkey mind is always racing, which I guess can be good and bad.
Exactly. Full of exciting plans one minute, then on to the next thing.
I can see how that might cause some friction in relationships. Is that their biggest hurdle?
It's up there. They value independence, maybe even more than other signs, and that need for freedom can be tough for others to handle.
So they need someone who gets it, right? That it's not personal, just part of their nature.
Precisely. They crave connection, but on their own terms. And speaking of which, our compatibility chart, it lays out some fascinating insights into which signs complement that independent nature, and which ones, well, might require a bit more effort.
Ooh, juicy details. Before we get there, any other monkey quirks we should know about? Give us the inside scoop.
Well, remember all that mental energy. Sometimes that can lead to stress, overthinking.
Ah, Prone to the 3 a.m. thought spirals.
Definitely a possibility. They need outlets, whether that's creative stuff, deep talks, or just friends who can keep up with that wit.
Makes sense. Now, on to those compatible connections. Our chart says rats, dragons, and snakes are considered a good match for monkeys across the board. What is it about those signs that clicks with that monkey energy?
Let's start with rats. They have a similar mental agility. Rats are intelligent, resourceful, and, just like monkeys, adaptable. They can handle the quick wit, the ever-changing interests.
It's like they speak the same mental language.
Exactly. Plus, rats tend to be loyal and supportive, which is grounding for a monkey who might be, well, prone to flights of fancy.
It's like the rat creates that safe haven for the monkey to explore, knowing someone's got their back.
You got it. Now, dragons offer something a little different. They match the monkey's energy with their own passion and ambition, both drawn to excitement, new experiences. Never a dull moment with those two.
Sounds adventurous, but in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I need to hear more about this. Snakes and monkeys, they seem like total opposites.
That's the beauty of it. Snakes are wise, intuitive, they think strategically. They bring a sense of calm that can be super alluring to a monkey with a million thoughts swirling.
So it's that classic opposites attract, but in a way that lasts.
Exactly. They challenge each other in all the right ways. Now, our chart also highlights some potentially trickier relationships. Tigers, pigs, and surprisingly, other monkeys. Why are these considered more challenging?
All right, let's unpack this. Tigers first.
So both tigers and monkeys are strong, independent, confident, used to getting their way, which can create this dynamic of constantly butting heads, right? Each trying to be the alpha.
Yikes. Sounds intense. Like fireworks?
It can be.
Yeah.
Then there's the pig. Pigs love peace, harmony, stability. They're grounded, thrive on routine, tradition.
Okay, and I think I see where this is going.
Right. Compare that to the monkey's need for stimulation, change, and you can see the clashes.
It's like they speak different languages when it comes to their ideal lifestyle.
Exactly. And finally, the most intriguing, the monkey-monkey pairing.
It seems counterintuitive, right? Wouldn't they just get each other?
You'd think. But while they might share traits and get each other's quirks, it can also lead to competition, especially if they're not careful.
Oh, I see. It's like having two stars in a solar system, both brilliant, but maybe battling for the spotlight.
You got it. That makes it hard to keep things harmonious.
So, not doomed, but definitely needs more effort. How does this actually play out in their love lives? I'm dying to know.
Well, let's dive into the monkey love life and see how those sparks fly. Because understanding monkey relationship dynamics, especially in love, can be surprisingly insightful.
So the monkey love life. Something tells me it's anything but boring. They crave excitement, so I'm guessing romance is no exception. What kind of partner can keep up with that energy?
Well, remember, monkeys are all about mental connection, exploring ideas, experiences, so a partner who's intellectually curious, that's key.
Makes sense. But we've also got those monkey quirks to factor in, right? Like needing their independence, and consistency isn't always their strong suit.
Exactly, which is why if we look at the chart, rats are such a good match. They keep up mentally, but they also give that stability, that security, so the monkey can just be themselves.
So the rat's like, go ahead, swing from the chandeliers. I've got you if you fall.
Perfect analogy. And in matters of the heart, that trust. Essential for a monkey. They need to be their full selves, no judgment.
Okay, rat-monkey love, I'm here for it. What about dragon-monkey pairings? I'm getting a can't stop, won't stop vibe from those two.
Oh, for sure. You're talking passionate, ambitious, always up for a challenge. Together, they encourage each other, they dream bigger, take risks, living life to the fullest.
Sounds like a whirlwind, but in a good way. Okay, now snakes. Help me out here, because on the surface, so different from monkeys.
That's what's so great about it. A monkey might be drawn in by the mystery, that quiet intensity, but it's the depth that really makes it work.
So less fireworks, more slow burn.
Exactly. Snakes, they're intuitive, insightful. They see the world differently, offer a fresh perspective that a monkey with all their buzzing around might miss.
Like they help the monkey slow down, appreciate the little things.
Precisely. Plus, snakes are incredibly sensual. They bring a calmness that a monkey who always has a lot going on up here, taps forehead, really needs.
It's that yin and yang thing, isn't it? Balancing each other out.
Absolutely. You've got playful energy, a bit frenetic sometimes, balanced by that introspective, grounded nature.
Okay, I'm seeing it. But not all relationships are perfect, right? What about those trickier pairings for monkeys? We've got to talk about those.
Right. Important to understand. Like we said, tigers and monkeys, potential for conflict, used to being in charge. neither backs down easily, especially in love.
And I'm guessing, communication-wise, could be a bit explosive.
You could say that. Then there's pigs. Remember, peace, harmony, stability, that's their thing.
Yeah, it's like their ideal date night is, I don't know, staying in, perfectly planned, maybe a shared spreadsheet to keep it all on track.
Right. Which, nothing wrong with that, but for a monkey, a little too predictable, maybe a little too tame. They need spontaneity, a little chaos.
It's like fitting a square peg in a round hole. Their needs just clash.
Exactly. And then the monkey-monkey romance could be the best thing ever, or, well, not.
It's that whole can't live with him, can't live without him thing, isn't it? What makes it so tricky.
Imagine the initial spark, though. Two witty, playful, adventurous souls, the chemistry off the charts.
So honeymoon phase is probably legendary, but then reality sets in.
Exactly. That's when the challenges hit. Freedom, independence, they both need a lot of it. They get bored easily if they're not both putting in the effort.
They got to be mindful, nurture that connection, or it falls apart.
Exactly. Plus, they might start competing, trying to outdo each other.
So communication, compromise, that's non-negotiable.
Absolutely. You know, this has got me thinking. We're so focused on romantic love, but these dynamics, they apply to other relationships too, friendships, for example.
Oh, for sure. And knowing monkeys, those friendships are probably never dull. Do the same compatibility rules apply? Like, are rats still the best friend a monkey could ask for?
Definitely up there.
I'm dying to hear more about these monkey friendships, because life's more fun with a playful monkey by your side, right?
They definitely keep things interesting. And yeah, just like romance, some signs just click with monkeys on that friend level.
So tell me more. Who are the ultimate monkey BFFs?
Well, you might guess this one. Rats, still at the top. They just get that monkey humor, the need for spontaneity. You know, when they just go from 0 to 60. Rats can handle it. Plus, they're there to listen when the monkey needs to process, and with that busy brain, it happens.
It's that mix of fun and support, right? That's what makes it last. What about dragons, though? Do they bring that same fiery energy to their friendships as they do to romance?
Totally. They're the ultimate hype friends, always celebrating each other's wins, offering encouragement when things get tough, and constantly pushing each other to grow, to chase those big dreams.
Dynamic duo energy, for sure. Okay, now I'm picturing snake-monkey friendships. Are they bonding over, like, board games and philosophy, or is that too cliche?
Maybe a little cliche, but not totally off base. Snakes, they bring that wisdom, that perspective that monkeys, who are always on the go, might miss. They're the friends who are like, hey, slow down for a second. Think this through.
Like a personal advisor, but, you know, the fun kind.
Exactly. But let's not forget those trickier friendships. Even those can be good.
Right, like tigers. I just imagine them as, like, constantly battling it out, you know?
It's a possibility, sure, but it doesn't have to be a disaster. Think of it like a friendly rivalry. One that pushes both of them, the monkey and the tiger, to do better.
So they might clash, but it's because they're both so driven.
Exactly. Sometimes that dynamic can be really motivating as long as, egos don't get out of control. Gotta have a sense of humor about it.
True, true. What about monkey-pig friendships, though? That still feels like a head-scratcher, just how different they are.
It takes effort, for sure. It's all about finding balance, appreciating the differences. Monkeys gotta remember the pig's need for routine, and pigs, they might need to loosen up a little, embrace the spontaneity.
So maybe not, like, join to the hip 204/7.
Yeah.
But they can still enjoy hanging out, learn from each other.
Exactly. And of course, the monkey-monkey friendship, which you can imagine.
Oh, I can only imagine. Double the fun, but also double the trouble.
Yeah. Pretty much. Could be the most supportive, amazing friendship ever. Or, a constant power struggle. Depends on the monkeys.
Hilarious and probably accurate.
Right. Communication is key. Respecting boundaries. And, sharing is important. Got to share those metaphorical bananas.
Speaking of monkey business, we haven't even talked about work styles. Knowing them, they're probably not meant for those boring office jobs, are they?
Not a chance. They need stimulation. Careers where they use that creativity, that quick wit, their ability to solve problems.
Anything that keeps them engaged, challenged. So no spreadsheets for these guys.
Unless they can find a way to make spreadsheets fun. Seriously, though, they need fast-paced, always changing environments, always learning.
Startups, tech, anything creative.
Exactly. Natural communicators, too, so marketing, sales, maybe even entertainment could be good.
But what about those monkey weaknesses? Do those come up at work, too?
Oh, definitely. Inconsistency can be a challenge, and that need for constant stimulation. Not always a good fit for jobs that are super routine-heavy or detail-oriented.
Maybe not an accountant, then.
Probably not. unless they find a way to shake things up. But really, it's about finding strategies, support systems, things that help them play to those strengths, manage the weaknesses.
The right environment, right people makes a huge difference.
Huge. And speaking of the right people, those compatibility dynamics, they apply at work too.
Tell me more. Who brings out a monkey's best at work and who? Well, who should they maybe avoid?
You won't be surprised. Rats. Still a top pick. They're grounded, practical, which helps monkeys actually, get things done. Plus, they're not afraid to challenge the monkey's thinking, so you get some really innovative ideas that way.
It's a great combo, the big ideas and actually making them happen.
For sure. Now, dragon-monkey coworkers, that can be amazing or little much. Depends how they handle those big personalities.
Double the ambition, but also double the drama potential.
You said it. Shared vision, they can achieve anything. But if it's all competition and ego, not so good.
Tread carefully, but could be a huge payoff.
Exactly. Snakes, though, as coworkers, invaluable to monkeys. They're the strategists, the ones who see the big picture, help the monkeys plan.
So they stop them from chasing every shiny object that pops up.
You got it. On the other hand, tiger-monkey coworkers, maybe invest in a good mediator.
Yeah, two strong personalities, recipe for disaster.
It can be, not always. Depends on the people, if they can collaborate. If they can respect each other's strengths, work towards the same goal, that's motivating for both of them.
Finding that balance, right?
Yeah.
Healthy competition versus all-out war. What about pig monkey coworkers, though?
Honestly, probably the toughest match at work. Their styles are just opposite. Pigs like routine, stability, and monkeys,
Like trying to mix oil and water.
Exactly. And then there's the monkey-monkey coworker situation, which I have a feeling...
It's a lot like their friendships, am I right? Amazing or a disaster?
You know it. Can they communicate, respect boundaries, and most importantly, can they share? Those are the questions.
A potential minefield, but maybe some incredible breakthroughs too. So much monkey business going on. And we haven't even touched on family dynamics. Our sources mention that this can be really interesting, especially monkey parents. Are they the fun ones, or do those mischievous tendencies make parenting interesting?
Monkey parents are a wild ride. Definitely bring that playfulness, that energy.
I'm already picturing like couch cushion forts and spontaneous dance parties.
Totally. They keep things entertaining. Rules and discipline, though. That's where it gets unpredictable.
Not strict then, more like, let's see what we can get away with kind of parents.
You got it. Rules one day, gone the next. Especially something more fun comes along.
That's where a partner with a bit more of a grounding energy, maybe a rat or a snake, would come in handy, right? For the kids' sake.
Absolutely. Balance is key. And don't forget about monkey kids. All that curiosity, energy, need for adventure.
I bet those kids could power a small city with how much energy they have. What's it like parenting a mini monkey?
Imagine constant activity, questions, probably a few pranks too, just for fun.
I bet they keep their parents on their toes.
You have no idea. But those compatibility dynamics, they play out within families too.
Oh, right. So like a monkey parent might clash with a tiger kid who needs their space, or a pig child who's all about routine.
Exactly. And even between siblings. Two monkey siblings. Or imagine a monkey child trying to outsmart their snake parent. Never a dull moment.
Sounds chaotic, but in a good way.
It definitely keeps things interesting, but no matter what the signs are, open communication, understanding each other, and a good sense of humor, that's what makes a family work.
So true. And speaking of wisdom, we can't forget about the Monkey King, right? Sun Wukong.
Yes. The monkey archetype. Mischievous, clever, always pushing those limits, but ultimately on a journey. Growing, transforming.
It's like those monkey traits we talked about. They're just a starting point, not the end. It's up to each monkey to decide how they use them.
Exactly. Which brings us to a final thought for our listeners. How much of our Chinese zodiac sign is destiny, set in stone, and how much is about our own journey? What we learn, how we grow.
The Rooster.
I'm so excited to get into this one.
Me too.
Now, before we get too far, we got to clear up one thing about the Chinese zodiac versus like the Western zodiac, right?
Okay.
In the Chinese zodiac, it's not just about like the month you were born, but the entire year, right?
That's right, yeah. Unlike the Western zodiac, where your sun sign is determined by the month, the Chinese zodiac goes by year. So there's a 12-year cycle, and each year is associated with a different animal sign.
So it's not just like, oh, I'm a Leo. It's like, I'm a fire rooster. It's a whole different level of astrological depth.
Yeah. And each of those elements brings a whole other layer of nuance to the sign.
Right. So we're talking wood roosters, fire roosters, each one a little bit different, and we'll definitely dig into that more.
But for today, let's just focus on, like, those core rooster traits, like the stuff that anyone born in the year of the rooster, no matter the element, will probably, like, totally vibe with. So I think it would be helpful to just start by painting a picture of the rooster personality for our listeners.
Okay.
So imagine, like, someone who's always dressed to the nines. They know exactly what they want.
Okay.
And they're not afraid to go after it. And they've got this air of confidence that, like, draws people in.
Definitely. That's a really good visual, actually, because roosters do have this natural charisma, right? Like, they tend to stand out in a crowd, not just because of their appearance, but just, like, their presence, their personality. They just have that, like, magnetic energy.
Yeah.
And I think a large part of that also stems from their, like, strong work ethic and their unwavering commitment. Like, they're just so dedicated to, like, everything that they do. And that really comes across, like, almost this inner drive to succeed that really fuels that kind of, like, magnetic personality.
Yeah. It's not just about, like, ego or anything. I mean, everyone loves having a rooster as a friend or a colleague, always, like, putting in 110%.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're just naturally very, very reliable people. And their dedication, it's not just like about personal gain either. It's really about like doing things right, and upholding a certain standard, like being dependable and being the one that everyone can really rely on. So they go the extra mile, whether it's like meeting a deadline at work or planning like the perfect birthday party for a friend.
Right.
They just find a lot of satisfaction in like order, and getting things done and getting things done well. So
Okay. So we've talked about, like, how ambitious roosters are, how reliable they are. But I've also heard that they can be a tad direct, like sometimes brutally honest to the point where it might ruffle some feathers.
yeah, that's a good point. It's like one of those like classic paradoxes of the rooster, I guess. Their honesty and their desire for like really clear communication, it comes from a really good place. But I will say, sometimes their delivery, it lacks tact, to say the least, especially for those who are maybe a little bit more sensitive. And it's not that they intend to hurt anyone's feelings, but I think it's more that they really prioritize directness over, like, sugarcoating.
Right. It's like you always know where you stand with a rooster.
Exactly. They're not going to beat around the bush.
They're going to tell it like it is.
Yeah, they'll tell you exactly what they're thinking.
Which, I mean, hey, honesty is the best policy, right? But I can see how that kind of straightforwardness could make certain relationships, shall we say, interesting.
For sure.
And speaking of relationships, Chinese astrology is really big on compatibility.
Yeah. So for our vibrant roosters out there,
Okay.
the Chinese zodiac points to the ox and the snake as the most harmonious pairings.
Ooh. Okay, so the ox and the snake.
Yeah.
I can kind of see it, but tell us why. What makes these two signs such a good fit for our rooster friends?
So with the ox, it really boils down to those shared values and like that deep understanding that you get from kind of like seeing the world through a similar lens. Both signs are just incredibly grounded. They're practical. They value stability above all else. So like they're not afraid of hard work. And they find joy like in building that solid foundation together, whether it's, a romantic relationship, a friendship, or even like a business partnership.
Yeah, it's that like slow and steady wins the race kind of vibe, right?
Exactly.
Which, I mean, it makes sense, like given those rooster long-term goals, right?
Totally.
But okay, what about the snake? Snakes seem like a little bit of a wild card compared to like the always reliable ox.
True. Yeah, snakes definitely have a little bit more of an air of mystery about them. But I think that's part of what makes them such a fascinating match for the rooster, right? So you have the rooster who's all about like outward action, like very direct communication. And then the snake brings in this like quiet wisdom, a lot of intuition, and this like real knack for strategic thinking,
So it's like that classic opposites attract kind of energy, but like in a way that actually works because they balance each other out.
Yes, exactly. And that's truly what it is. It's like the rooster's fiery energy is kind of like tempered by the snake's calm demeanor.
Right.
And the snake, on the other hand, is inspired by the rooster's passion and drive,
Right.
So it's a pairing that can be incredibly dynamic and fulfilling as long as, they kind of remember to appreciate those differences between them.
It's a good reminder that compatibility isn't about being like the same. It's about how our differences can actually complement and enhance a relationship.
100%, yeah.
But, of course, no cosmic compatibility guide would be complete without, like, just a little sprinkle of proceed with caution.
Right, exactly. There's always going to be like a little bit of warning.
A little bit of a warning.
Yeah, a little bit of a warning in there. And in the case of the rooster, those potentially challenging matches would be the rabbit and the dog.
What makes these pairings a bit trickier to navigate for our rooster friends?
So with the rabbit, it often comes down to communication styles.
Okay.
We've talked about how roosters can be like very direct,
Right.
sometimes even blunt in their communication. And rabbits, on the other hand, are known for their sensitivity and their preference for like a gentler approach.
Yeah.
So those differences can lead to misunderstandings, hurt feelings if both people aren't like super careful about how they're, coming across.
So it's like the rooster's like well-intentioned honesty. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But it accidentally like steps on the rabbit's toes a little bit.
Yep. Yeah, it can be a little too harsh sometimes, for sure.
And what about with the dog? Where does the friction arise there?
So dogs are like deeply loyal.
Right.
And they're idealistic. While roosters tend to be more pragmatic and results-oriented, so you have this like difference in perspective, right?
Yeah.
That can create some tension, especially when it comes to like decision-making or just like how they handle challenges. So the dog might feel like the rooster isn't like taking their ideals seriously enough.
Right.
And then the rooster might see the dog as being overly idealistic or maybe a little unrealistic.
Yeah, it's like they're like speaking two different languages, even when they're using the same words.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's that like fundamental difference in perspective.
Okay. So to our roosters listening out there, if you've got a rabbit or a dog in your life,
Yeah.
do not panic. So it's not a relationship death sentence, right?
No, absolutely not. Awareness is key here. Like, just by even understanding these like potential challenges.
Right. Roosters can then kind of adjust their approach to those relationships and just learn to communicate in a way that really resonates with like the other person's needs,
Yeah, it's about meeting each other halfway, right? Like finding that common ground.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Compromise and understanding.
But I'm curious about how these classic rooster traits that we've been discussing, how those play out in like other areas of life,
Yeah.
Like we talked about their like really strong work ethic.
Mm-hmm.
What about like career paths? What kind of professional roles do you think would make a rooster feel right at home?
Oh, the workplace is like a rooster's playground, honestly.
I could see that.
Yeah. They just naturally gravitate towards roles that allow them to use their like organizational skills,
Okay.
that attention to detail,
Right.
and just like that unwavering commitment to excellence that we talk about.
Yeah, like they were born with like a to-do list in one hand and like a strategic plan in the other. And I think that's why they tend to do really well in like leadership positions or in fields that require a lot of precision and like that systematic approach. So think project management, finance, engineering,
Right.
areas where their ability to like strategize, manage those details, and then inspire other people to do the same, like it really shines,
Makes total sense.
Yeah.
And like they'd be the ones to get everyone else organized too, right?
Most likely. But remember, we also talked about the rooster's tendency toward that direct, sometimes overly critical communication style.
Right.
So that's kind of the double-edged sword of that personality in a professional setting.
Yeah, that's a really good point because like their feedback would be so valuable.
Yeah.
Right. Because they're not afraid to like point out areas for improvement.
100%. They're
Yeah.
going to be honest with you.
But if they're not careful, it could also like come across as a little harsh or create some tension amongst colleagues, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. It could, for sure.
It's like how do you deliver constructive criticism with a spoonful of sugar?
Exactly. Yeah, that's like the thing that roosters kind of have to work on, I guess,
Right.
is being direct without being disrespectful.
Yeah.
And learning to like how to like tailor your communication style to like suit the needs of the situation and the people that you're talking to,
Yeah, it's not just what you say, it's how you say it.
Exactly.
Which, I mean, honestly, that's good advice for everyone.
Yeah, right.
But, we've been talking a lot about external dynamics,
Mhm.
like relationships, careers, all of that.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious to pivot a little bit and talk about like the internal world of the rooster. What about their personal growth journey?
Sure.
Are there certain areas where like they would benefit from maybe a little bit of self-reflection?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Journey inward, it can be just as important as all those like external achievements that they're, always striving for.
Right.
One thing that they might want to explore is just like learning to temper that critical eye a little bit.
Okay.
Not just towards others, but towards themselves too.
That makes sense. I mean, they hold themselves to such high standards. It's got to be tough to like live up to that all the time, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think because they do, like, they tend to kind of equate their worth with their accomplishments, Any
Right.
like perceived failure can really hit them harder than it might for other people.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So like part of that personal growth journey is like learning to be a little bit kinder to themselves.
Yeah.
Like embrace those imperfections a bit.
Exactly. Like, it's okay to not be perfect all the time. It's okay to, like,
Right.
make mistakes and, like, actually learn from those experiences instead of letting them,
It's about progress, not perfection.
Exactly.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah, it's that journey that really matters. And another area where I think roosters might find some growth is in learning to, like, embrace flexibility a little bit more.
Because they really, really thrive on routine and order.
Right.
But like life doesn't always follow a schedule.
Tell me about it. Sometimes, like, those unexpected detours, those are the things that, like, lead to the most amazing destinations, right?
That's a really good point, actually.
Yeah.
So true. And I think for a rooster, like learning to adapt to change.
It's about finding that balance between, like, their love of order and their ability to, like, roll with the punches when they need to.
Yeah, finding that balance.
Now, all that being said, our research for this deep dive on roosters, we came across this idea of the rooster being connected to the dawn.
Oh, yeah.
And
yeah.
I don't know, like, that imagery just feels so potent to me. What do you think is, like, the deeper meaning there? It's a beautiful image. It really is. It's like the rooster as this, like, herald of the dawn.
Right.
The symbol of new beginnings, of, like, literally light triumphing over darkness.
Yeah.
It really speaks to their, like, energetic nature, their drive to really seize the day.
Yeah, it's like they embody that fresh start energy.
Exactly.
And it makes me think about how we can all learn from that rooster spirit, no matter our sign.
Yeah.
That willingness to just like embrace each day as a new opportunity to learn and to grow and to just create something meaningful.
Right. Totally. I love that. Yeah. And maybe it's just like a nice little reminder for all of us that even amidst all the chaos of life, there's always that chance for a fresh start. Like, there's always a new dawn waiting just around the corner.
That's beautifully said.
You ever wonder what makes people born in the year of the dog tick?
I'm intrigued already.
Well, today we're going to really try to get into their heads a bit, at least when it comes to Chinese astrology. We'll uncover those core traits, compatibility, and even some potential challenges.
Oh, I like where this is going.
So, I mean, you probably already know the basics, right? The dog, 11th sign in the Chinese zodiac.
Right. All about loyalty, honesty, a strong sense of justice.
Exactly.
But it's easy to forget that those aren't just like abstract symbols.
Totally.
They actually manifest in how dogs approach everything. Relationships, careers, even how they handle everyday stuff.
It's like their whole outlook is shaped by those values. During Chinese New Year, it's super common for people to honor their pets.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah, and it's specifically meant as a way to pay homage to the dog's protective spirit.
Wow. See, that's what I mean. Those astrological concepts, they're everywhere, woven into the fabric of Chinese culture.
It's more than just a quick glance at your horoscope. It's like a whole different way of seeing things.
Totally.
Okay, so we talked about the basics, but are you ready for things to get interesting?
Always.
Did you know that there are actually 5 different types of dog signs?
Wait, really?
Yeah, it's not if you're a dog, but what kind of dog you are. And it all comes down to the year you were born.
Oh, okay. So this is where the elements come into play.
You got it. Each dog year is connected to wood, fire, earth, metal, or water, and that adds a whole other layer to their personality.
It's like each element adds its own little twist to the dog. I'm into it. Let's break them down.
Okay, so first up, we've got the wood dogs, born in 1982. They're described as creative, natural collaborators,
Oh, I know some wood dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. They thrive in those environments where they can just bounce ideas around.
It's like they're always in a brainstorming session full of ideas.
Yes.
Next, we've got our fighter dogs, born in 1994. They're the passionate ones, super energetic.
Oh, yeah. A little impatient sometimes, too, right?
Maybe a tad. Think of a dog chasing a squirrel. That's that fire dog energy.
That's a perfect way to put it. That much energy can be inspiring, but maybe not so much in situations that need, a little more patience.
True. Now, for those born in 2018, we've got the Earth dogs. They're like the rocks of their friend group.
The reliable ones always know what to do.
Exactly. Practical, grounded, always down to help you solve a problem.
If you're ever stuck with a flat tire, call an Earth dog. Seriously, they're the ones with the jumper cables.
100%. All right, moving on to the metal dogs, born in 1970. They've got this quiet intensity to them, Disciplined, determined, very strong convictions.
I could see that.
Like a dog guarding its bone, but, with a bit more going on beneath the surface.
Oh, for sure. And those strong convictions are awesome, but sometimes metal dogs need to remember there's more than one way to do things.
Flexibility is key, right? Okay, last but not least, we've got our water dogs, born in 1958. Think empathetic, intuitive, they just get people.
The kind of people who just know when you need a hug,
Exactly. Like they just have a sixth sense for emotions.
It's uncanny, I swear.
So we've got our 5 dog personalities, each shaped by their element. But how do they actually interact with others in the real world?
Because, let's be real, it takes all kinds to make the world go round, and not all signs are going to vibe well together.
Exactly. And when we talk compatibility in Chinese astrology, it goes way beyond romance, right?
Oh, absolutely. We're talking friendships, family dynamics, even work relationships.
It's about understanding how we connect with each other on all levels.
Exactly. So, who meshes well with our dog friends?
Well, I'm glad you asked. Our dogs tend to get along really well with tigers, rabbits, horses, and pigs.
Interesting. What is it about those pairings?
It seems like they just have a lot of shared values. Creates a natural harmony, whether it's love, friendship, whatever.
Shared values make sense, but come on, spill the tea. Which pairings are going to be
a
little rough around the edges?
All right, you got me. So the source mentions potential clashes with dragons, roosters, rats, snakes, and goats.
Ooh, those could be tricky.
Yeah, these relationships might need more effort, more understanding.
To find that balance.
Exactly. So to give you an example, let's dive into one of those potentially tricky pairings. How about dogs and dragons?
Okay, yeah, let's unpack that one.
So think about their personalities, right? Dogs, they like stability, predictability, routine.
Makes them feel safe and secure.
Exactly. But dragons, they're all about spontaneity, shaking things up just to see what happens. They love the unexpected.
I can already see how that could lead to some disagreements.
Right. Imagine those two trying to plan a vacation together.
Oh, man, that's a recipe for disaster. One wants to relax by the pool and the other wants to go bungee jumping.
You see what I mean? And it's not just vacations. This difference in their approach can really affect communication, decision-making, how they handle risk.
Basically every aspect of a relationship.
Pretty much. And it's not that one sign is good and the other's bad, right? It's just that their personalities might clash sometimes.
Totally. It's about recognizing those differences and being willing to, meet in the middle.
Compromise is key. So we've covered the different types of dogs, how their elements influence them, and even how they interact with other signs. But we're not done yet.
There's more.
Oh yeah, we still need to unpack the strengths and weaknesses that come with being a dog.
Right, because just like every sign in the Chinese Zodiac, there's 2 sides to every coin.
That's a good way to put it. So, what would you say are some of the dog's most admirable qualities?
Well, we kind of touched on them before, right? Their loyalty, honesty, that strong sense of justice.
And for sure.
But it goes deeper than that, It's like they have this internal compass that always points them toward fairness. They want to protect the vulnerable.
Now that you mention it, I've noticed that a lot of dogs are drawn to certain careers like social work or counseling.
Or law enforcement.
Roles where they can really make a difference and help others.
Exactly. It speaks to that desire to fight for what's right,
Yeah.
But they're also incredibly empathetic. It's like they just sense what others need before they even say anything.
Oh my gosh, yes. I have a close friend who's a dog. They always know when I need someone to just listen, No judgment, just pure support.
That's the dog way.
Yeah.
Their empathy is definitely one of their superpowers.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, like everyone, they've got a few weaknesses to be aware of, too.
And remember, everyone, understanding those weaknesses, not judging, we all have things to work on, right?
Absolutely. One thing that really stood out to me from the Year of the Dog source was their tendency to be, how do I put this, overly critical.
Oh, interesting. You mean of others?
Not necessarily. More often than not, it's directed inward.
Ugh. That inner critic can be a real struggle, especially when you combine it with their stubborn streak, which, let's be honest, can be a bit of a dog trait too.
100%. Now, don't get me wrong, having strong convictions is a good thing. But that conviction can easily turn into inflexibility if they're not careful.
It's like they see their way as the only way.
Exactly. They might struggle to see other perspectives or accept that, hey, maybe there's more than one right way to do something.
Goes back to that image of the dog and its bone.
For sure. They got to learn to loosen their grip a bit sometimes and be open to other possibilities.
Speaking of loosening their grip, we can't forget about a dog's tendency to, well, worry.
Oh, tell me about it.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't always know it because they often put on such a brave face.
Right. They seem so tough on the outside.
Exactly. But that worry comes from a good place, really. It's that deep care and loyalty they have for the people they love.
But it can also lead to, like, a ton of stress if they let it get out of control.
For sure. It's like they're always on high alert, constantly scanning for potential problems.
It's exhausting, both for them and the people around them.
Oh, they can be surprisingly sensitive to criticism.
Really? Even if you're just trying to be helpful.
Especially then. I know, it seems counterintuitive. We associate dogs with being so resilient, right?
Right.
But beneath that tough exterior, there's a sensitive soul that needs to be treated with a little extra care.
It's like all those barks might actually be hiding a softer side. Who knew?
It's a good reminder that no matter what your astrological sign is, we've all got feelings and vulnerabilities, dogs included.
Well said. So, we've talked a lot about the different facets of the dog, but there's one more layer we need to peel back here.
And what's that?
Well, earlier you mentioned something really interesting about compatibility. You said it's not just about how our sign interacts with others, but also with ourselves.
Ah, yes. That's a big one. We often focus so much on how our sign relates to our partners or friends.
Right, but what about the relationship we have with our own astrological blueprint? That's kind of blowing my mind.
Right, it's a whole other level of self-awareness. So we have to ask ourselves, how do those dog traits influence our own self-perception and decisions?
So what you're saying is certain dog traits might be more compatible with other dog traits within the same person.
Exactly. Let's think about that tendency towards self-criticism again. If a dog isn't careful, that inner voice can become a huge obstacle, especially when you add in their potential for stubbornness.
Oh, I see what you're saying. It's like those weaknesses can feed off each other and become even more pronounced.
Precisely. It can be a recipe for some serious self-sabotage. But on the other hand, imagine a dog who combines their empathy with that inherent sense of justice.
Oh yeah, that's a powerful combination.
Right. It paves the way for incredible self-awareness and personal growth.
Because they're able to turn that empathy inwards and actually understand their own motivations better.
Exactly. It's all about recognizing how those dog traits, both the good and the, let's say, challenging ones, how those traits influence our perception of ourselves, our choices, even our relationship with ourselves. It's deep stuff.
Mind-blowing, really. It's like suddenly we're holding up a mirror and saying, hey, look at how your astrological wiring might be playing out in your life.
Yes. And once you understand that, it allows you to make more conscious choices about who you want to be in the world. Powerful stuff.
No kidding. This has been eye-opening. Wow, I'm so glad we had this conversation.
Me too. Dogs are just so fascinating, you know.
They really are. We've unpacked so much about the year of the dog today. Those core traits, the different elements. It's a lot to take in.
And don't forget that whole compatibility thing. Not just with other signs, but with themselves too.
Right. That idea of being compatible with your own astrological blueprint has been swirling around in my head ever since you mentioned it.
I know. It makes you see things in a whole new light, doesn't it?
For sure. It's like Chinese astrology isn't just about predicting the future. It's a tool for self-discovery.
Exactly. And I think for people born in the year of the dog, understanding their strengths, it can really help them step into their power.
And knowing their weaknesses, well, it allows them to approach those challenges with more, I don't know, more compassion,
Yeah.
for themselves and everyone around them.
Could have said it better myself.
So as we wrap up our deep dive on the year of the dog, what are some key things you hope our listeners will take away from this conversation?
Well, I hope they have a better understanding of just how complex the dog sign really is. It goes way beyond those simple stereotypes like, oh, dogs are loyal,
Totally.
There's so much depth there.
Absolutely. And for our listeners who are dogs themselves, I hope they feel seen, like we really got them, and maybe even a little bit proud to be a dog.
Yes. And for everyone else out there, if you've got dogs in your life, partners, friends, whoever, I hope this gives you a new way to appreciate them.
I love that. So, any final words of wisdom for our listeners before we say goodbye?
Let me see. I guess I would just say this. Whether you're a dog or not, Chinese astrology, it's really a journey of self-discovery.
It's not about putting people in a box.
Exactly. It's about understanding what makes us tick.
I like that. And hey, maybe this deep dive will inspire our listeners to learn more about all the other signs, too.
Hey, listeners, get ready to uncover some fascinating insights about this often misunderstood sign.
You know, it is funny you say misunderstood because the pig often gets associated with just being, well, nice. But the year of the pig really dives into the deeper layers and shows there's so much more to them than that.
Totally. So let's unpack this. Generous, compassionate, diligent, almost like the overachiever of the zodiac.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, they're supposed to be super easygoing.
Interesting.
How do those two things even go together?
It's all about balance, right? The pig embodies this beautiful blend of yin and yang energy.
Okay, so for anyone who's not familiar with those terms, what do they even mean?
Right, so in Chinese philosophy, yin is often seen as the more receptive, nurturing energy, while yang is the more active, assertive force.
Okay.
So in the pig, we see this really harmonious interplay of both.
So they can be like super driven and ambitious.
Yeah.
But they approach everything with this grounded, compassionate energy.
Exactly.
I like that.
It's a really powerful combination.
Yeah. Like this interesting link between pigs and abundance.
Oh, yeah. Tell me more.
Like historically in Chinese culture, pigs were actually seen as a sign of wealth and prosperity.
Absolutely. You know, before we get too deep into personality, it's important to remember that in the Chinese zodiac, each sign is linked to a specific year in a 12-year cycle.
Oh, right.
So anyone born in, let's say, 1959, 1971, 1983, and so on would be a pig.
Right.
And they would embody these pig-like qualities.
And so back in the day, having a lot of pigs meant you were doing pretty well for yourself.
Exactly. They were very valuable.
But it's not just about like material wealth.
No.
It's deeper than that, right? It's about prosperity in all areas of life.
Precisely. The pig's connection to abundance goes way beyond just money. It's about fertility growth, a bountiful harvest, all things that symbolize prosperity in a broader sense.
So it's like their energy is aligned with abundance, whether it's in their relationships, their careers, or just their outlook on life.
I like that.
Okay, so we've talked about this awesome yin-yang balance and their connection to prosperity.
Right.
But like every sign, pigs have their strengths and weaknesses too, right?
Right, for sure. No one's perfect.
What are our sources saying about that?
Absolutely. The year of the pig gets into some really interesting nuances here.
Oh.
And you're right, no sign is all sunshine and rainbows.
Right.
The pig's strengths can actually be their weaknesses in disguise.
Okay, how so? Tell me more.
It really depends on how those strengths are expressed. Let's start with generosity. Core pig trait.
Right, like they're the givers.
They are incredibly giving of their time, their energy, their resources.
Yeah, always willing to help.
But as the year of the pig points out, this can sometimes lead to them being taken advantage of.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Which can be a real problem.
If you're always the one saying yes, people might start to take advantage.
Exactly. It's like that old saying, too much of a good thing.
Right, exactly.
And this plays out in other ways too, like their trusting nature.
Oh, yeah.
Can make them susceptible to scams or being manipulated.
Oh, wow.
Or their desire to please everyone can lead to them overcommitting or neglecting their own needs.
It's like their big heart needs a suit of armor.
Yeah, you could say that.
So the year of the pig also lists loyalty as a major strength.
Oh, absolutely.
But how can that be a weakness?
Well, think about it this way.
Okay.
Pigs are fiercely loyal to their loved ones.
Right.
Which is an admirable quality for sure.
Of course.
But this loyalty can sometimes blind them to red flags or make it difficult for them to walk away from unhealthy relationships.
That's so interesting. I hadn't thought about it that way before.
Yeah, it's something to keep in mind.
So it's almost like they need to balance that unwavering loyalty with a healthy dose of discernment.
Yes. Discernment and self-preservation.
Yeah, you got to have that self-preservation too.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've talked about those, but let's not forget about all the good stuff.
Oh, yeah. The pig has so many great qualities.
Their incredible work ethic.
Oh, for sure. They're not afraid of hard work.
Yeah, they get stuff done.
And they find a lot of satisfaction in a job well done,
I can see that.
which I think makes them really fantastic collaborators.
Yeah, but they'd be good on a team.
And reliable team members, for sure.
And that tracks with them being associated with abundance.
Right.
Hard work pays off.
Usually.
But the year of the pig also mentions impatience as a potential weakness.
Oh, that's an interesting one.
How does that fit in?
Well, because pigs are so dedicated and driven,
Right.
they can get frustrated when things don't move as quickly as they'd like,
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
or when others don't necessarily share that same level of commitment.
Okay. Yeah, that would be tough.
So yeah, they might need to remind themselves that patience is a virtue,
Right.
and that sometimes you just have to trust the process.
Okay, so we're seeing this theme of too much of a good thing can be a weakness.
Yeah. It's all about finding that balance.
Right, exactly. And speaking of navigating different energies,
Yes.
let's talk about the pig's compatibility with other signs.
Okay, let's do it.
So who should a pig put on their speed dial for love and romance?
Rabbits and goats are a match made in zodiac heaven for pigs.
Okay, so rabbits and goats. What is it about these signs that makes them such a good fit?
Well, rabbits, like pigs, are incredibly gentle and compassionate souls, and they really prioritize harmony in their relationships. And they create a very nurturing and supportive environment.
So the pig would feel right at home.
Exactly. And they're both very family-oriented, so their values really do align beautifully.
It's like they just get each other.
Yeah, totally.
Now, what about goats? What's the secret sauce there?
Well, goats are also known for their gentle, nurturing nature,
Okay.
and they share the pig's love for creating a warm and loving home life.
I like that.
They're incredibly supportive partners.
And they provide that emotional security that I think a pig really craves.
Right, they really value that.
Plus, they're both creative souls,
Oh, that's a good point.
so they can inspire and uplift each other.
I love that combo.
Okay, so I'm sensing a theme here. Emotional depth, shared values, and a whole lot of heart.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The recipe for a happy pig?
But what about those relationships that might be a little bit rockier?
Yeah. No relationship is perfect.
The pig compatibility chart does mention some potentially challenging pairings,
It does. It does.
like snakes and tigers.
Those can be a little trickier.
Okay, so tell me more about the pig and the snake.
Mhm.
Why might that one be tough?
Well, snakes can be quite secretive and reserved,
Okay.
which can actually be a source of frustration for the straightforward, open-hearted pig.
Yeah, I can see how that would be tough.
They might perceive the snake's need for privacy as being distant or emotionally unavailable,
Right, like they don't care.
when really that's just how snakes operate.
And what about tigers? They seem like they have such a strong presence, so why wouldn't that mesh well with the pig?
Well, tigers are incredibly independent,
Okay.
and they crave a lot of freedom, which can clash with the pig's desire for closeness and connection.
Oh, so like one's a homebody and one's always out and about.
Yeah, kind of like that.
So it's that classic push and pull dynamic.
Exactly.
The pig might feel a bit suffocated by the tiger's need for space,
Right?
and the tiger might feel weighed down by the pig's need for constant reassurance. So not a deal breaker, these relationships can work,
Oh, absolutely.
but it would require both the pig and the tiger to be very aware and good at communicating.
Yes. Communication is key in any relationship, but especially this one.
Okay, so we've covered love, but what about friendships?
Oh, friendship. So important.
Who are those friends that will always be there for the pig through thick and thin, sharing snacks and secrets?
Well, dogs and rabbits top the list for friendship compatibility.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
They've already got that shared emphasis on loyalty, honesty, emotional support.
They've got all the fundamentals down,
Exactly. These are the friends who will always have your back,
no matter what.
no matter what.
I love that.
Yeah.
But of course, not every sign is going to be the pig's BFF.
Right. Some pairings just take more work.
So who are those signs that might not be the pig's first pick for a friendship bracelet exchange?
Horses and rats.
Okay, let's start with horses. What makes this pairing potentially tricky?
Horses, much like tigers, value their independence and freedom above all else.
Right.
They're free spirits.
They got to roam free.
They do, which can be challenging for the pig who thrives on closeness and emotional connection.
Right, so it's not that horses aren't capable of deep friendships.
No, not at all.
It's just that their definition of friendship might look a little different from the pig's. That's a good way to put it.
Now, rats, on the other hand,
Yes, those tricky rats.
they present a different kind of challenge.
They do.
They can be very charming and intelligent,
Very quick-witted.
but they also have a reputation for being a bit cunning and maybe a tad self-serving,
Yeah.
which wouldn't really vibe with the pig's strong sense of fairness and honesty.
Right. The pig values honesty above all else.
Exactly. Pigs are very straightforward and they really value transparency.
Yeah.
So they might find the rat's more manipulative tendencies a bit off-putting.
A little bit, yeah.
Okay, so far we've covered love and friendship.
Right. The most important topics.
Let's move on to work and business. Pigs can actually find incredible synergy with tigers and goats in a work setting.
Really?
Yeah, which is interesting because we just talked about those pairings as being potentially challenging romantically.
So maybe not the best for cuddling on the couch,
Maybe not.
but fantastic for brainstorming sessions and meeting deadlines. What makes these pairings so dynamic professionally?
Well, with tigers, it's all about that combined ambition.
Okay.
You've got the pig's dedication and work ethic,
Right.
which perfectly complements the tiger's natural leadership skills and drive to succeed.
They would be unstoppable.
A force to be reckoned with.
And what about goats? What do they bring to the table?
Goats are incredibly creative and innovative.
Oh, yeah, they are.
And they bring this sense of playfulness to the workplace,
Mhm.
which can be really inspiring for the pig.
I like that.
It lightens the mood a little bit.
So the pig provides structure and follow-through.
Yeah, it keeps everyone on track.
And the goat injects those purse of creativity and fresh perspectives.
Exactly. A perfect balance.
But just like in any good team,
Right?
there are bound to be some personality clashes.
Of course. It wouldn't be a team without it.
Are there any signs the chart advises pigs to be cautious of in a professional setting?
Yes. Actually, dragons and snakes are highlighted as potential challenges in the workplace.
Oh, interesting. So just like with romantic partnerships.
It seems so.
Why do you think that is?
It's tough to say, but I have some theories.
Okay, I'm listening.
So, dragons.
These powerful, charismatic leaders.
Well, dragons can be quite demanding,
Okay.
and they often have a very strong need for control,
Right.
which can clash with the pig's more collaborative and harmonious approach.
I could see that causing some friction.
Yeah, some power struggles, maybe.
And with snakes, probably comes back to those communication styles again.
I think you're right.
Snakes can be very strategic,
Mm-hmm.
and they like to play their cards close to their chest.
Very much so.
Whereas pigs value transparency and honesty.
Open book.
So there could be some mistrust or misunderstandings if they're not careful.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so for business ventures, it sounds like rabbits and dogs are the safest bets.
They do seem to be the most compatible across the board.
Makes sense. They're already incredibly compatible as friends, so it makes sense they would make great business partners too. But what about monkeys? They're often associated with being very clever and resourceful.
They are.
Wouldn't that be an asset in the business world?
While monkeys can bring a lot of energy and enthusiasm to a project,
Right.
their unpredictable nature
Okay.
and their tendency to get bored easily could create a little bit of chaos for a pig who values stability and careful planning.
So maybe not the best for a long-term business partnership,
Probably not.
but perhaps a fun collaborator for a short-term project.
Yes, where they can really bring that spark of spontaneity.
Yeah, let them run wild for a little bit.
Exactly. Now, before we wrap up this compatibility deep dive, we can't forget about family dynamic.
Ooh, this is a big one.
Huge, especially for the family-oriented pig.
So who are the signs that will help create that dream team family unit?
Well, rabbits and goats come out on top once again.
Oh, shocker.
I know, right? They just really complement the pig so well.
Makes sense.
They share those core values of family emotional support, creating a harmonious home life.
It's like they're the trifecta of compatibility, love, friendship, family.
They really are.
But we do have those potential challenges with rats and horses, right?
Right, because you can't choose your family.
Exactly.
Even if you can choose your friends.
So what's the key to making those relationships work?
Well, with rats, I think it's about recognizing their ambition and drive,
Okay.
while also setting really firm boundaries to make sure those family needs are being met.
Right, so you're supporting their individual pursuits, but also nurturing that sense of togetherness.
Exactly. Finding that balance is key.
And what about horses?
Well, with horses, it all comes down to communication. Okay.
And finding a compromise between the pig's need for closeness and the horse's desire for independence.
So maybe scheduling regular family time or finding activities they can all enjoy together that also allow for some individual space.
Yes. It's all about being mindful of each other's needs and finding creative ways to bridge those differences.
It's like a cosmic dance, learning to move in sync with each other's rhythms.
I love that analogy.
Okay, so we've covered pretty much every aspect of the pig's compatibility.
We really have.
Love, friendship, work, and family.
We've covered it all.
But what about those more casual encounters?
Right.
The random social gatherings, the networking events, the chance encounters at the grocery store.
Those are important too.
So for those everyday social interactions, the chart highlights monkeys and dogs as being the pig's social butterflies.
Makes sense. Monkeys are known for their playful energy.
And their ability to strike up a conversation with just about anyone.
Oh, yeah.
And dogs are always down for a good time and always up for making new friends.
I love that energy. But are there any signs that might not be on the pig's VIP guest list?
You know, roosters and snakes might make the pig's social radar beep a little.
Okay, why is that?
Well, roosters, with their tendency for blunt honesty.
Yeah, they're not afraid to speak their mind.
Exactly, and that might unintentionally ruffle the pig's sensitive feathers.
Yeah, pigs can be a little sensitive.
They're sweethearts.
And what about snakes?
Snakes can be quite introverted, you know?
Oh,
And they much prefer deeper conversations to small talk.
Right.
So they might find the pig's more outgoing and boisterous social style a bit overwhelming.
So it's not that they wouldn't get along.
No, not at all.
It's just that their social batteries recharge in different ways.
Exactly. One person's party is another person's social drain.
So true. Okay,
Yeah.
so we've journeyed through the highs and lows of the pig's compatibility with other signs.
We've explored it all.
Their ideal matches. The pairings that require a little extra finesse,
A little extra effort.
and everything in between.
He's been a journey.
It really has been quite the compatibility deep dive.
I think we covered it all.
But before we release everyone back into their wild and wonderful social lives,
Right.
let's take a moment to reflect on everything we've learned about this year of the pig.
I think what's most fascinating to me about the pig is their incredible capacity for empathy and compassion.
Yeah, they're really something special.
They genuinely want to see the best in everyone, and they just approach the world with this beautiful sense of optimism and generosity.
Yeah, it's like they just radiate warmth.
They do.
You just feel good being around them.
They have that effect on people, but
As we've discussed,
yes,
this incredible heart of theirs can also make them vulnerable
that's the double-edged sword.
to being taken advantage of or getting their feelings hurt. Remember, your kindness is a strength. It is not a weakness.
Never forget that.
But it's okay to set boundaries.
Yes, boundaries are important for everyone.
Then protect your energy.
Yes, you got to recharge those batteries.
Thank you so much for joining us on the deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep embracing all those fascinating contradictions that make us who we are.